OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 OTB AM. I know. All week, Kenny this, Kenny that, Kenny the other. You've had it up to the back teeth of Kenny, and that's why I'm delighted to say myself and Eoin Sheahan this morning are joined in studio by none other than Kenny Cunningham. Morning, Kenny.
All right, lads.
What's happening?
It's all
Been
good.
working on that one for all week.
Pretty much it's all I did last night.
I sense where you're going with that.
I was up until about 1:30 last night. Kenny, what's going on? Great to see you. This for me definitely represents somewhat of a return to normality. Seeing you for the first time, I'd say, in the flesh, Kenny, for the best part about certainly a year and a half more.
Year and a half, is it?
How's life?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah?
All good, yeah.
You're
Looking forward to a bit of footy this weekend.
Yeah. I imagine you've been watching events in Newcastle with a sympathetic eye for the Newcastle manager.
Well, to be honest with you, my first thought was I'm delighted for the supporters because I think it's the kind of everybody's second club. You know, a bit of a cliche, isn't it? Kind of Newcastle generally amongst football people and supporters. There's a lot of feeling for the football club generally, I think. And in terms of where they've been the last few years, you know, kind of is it a big club, isn't, and the struggles they've had in terms of investment to a point into the football club. And people, I think, genuinely like to see the club kind of do well and kind of flourish. People hark back to the Kevin Keegan era, really, wasn't it? I can vaguely remember that, the kind of buzz that was around the football club at that time, the players who came in. Yeah, and it really kind of took off up there. It's a great place to be, I think, when things are going well. So for the supporters themselves, it has been a struggle for some years. I'm pleased for them because there's going to be obvious investment there that's going to come into the football club. You know, they're going to be interested in the potential players who are going to come in, and they will come in. There's going to be some big names coming in there. There's going to be some big wages paid. There's going to be a big commitment from the new owners, I'd imagine, in that respect. So, yeah, I'm pleased for them. They'll be excited, and yeah, good luck to them.
Some reports coming out of Newcastle this morning that Steve Bruce is going to be replaced. It's not a great shock to anybody. I think he thought it. I think everybody thought it was going to go on. Yourself and Brucey would have you'd have been good mates down the years, Kenny.
No, I wouldn't have been a good mate. I wouldn't have been a good mate to any of your managers. To be honest with you, that's generally the case. It's kind of a professional relationship I have with most of your managers. So, yeah, I think he's in trouble. That's kind of pretty obvious. I'm sure they'll come out. Amanda Staveley, as I think, is the kind of face of the kind of consortium who's bought the football club. I'm sure she'll be saying all the right things and assuring the manager, and you know, there'll be no knee-jerk decisions being made in the immediate future. I'm sure that will be the case over the next kind of weeks and probably a couple of months, Adrian. But you just sense as if you get to that kind of window, maybe Christmas, New Year's, when things settle down a little bit. You wouldn't be surprised then if maybe phone calls are being made, if they're not even being made at the moment, to managers, agents, and maybe potentially things are being lined up for the new year. That's to be fair. That's not necessarily a reflection on maybe Steve Bruce and his.
Well, he's not going to be if all these unbelievable sums of money are coming into the club, and they are. Everybody, including himself, accepts that he is not going to be the one on the end of the line to Erling Haaland. He might well be onto Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe. That's not going to be. Everybody knows that's not Steve Bruce's gig.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think when you look at it, I think timing a little bit as well. I remember like a year ago looking around the football landscape in terms of managers, and there seemed to be like about half a dozen some of the top managers out of a job, you know, kind of there for the taking. Pochettino was on gardening leave, wasn't he? Obviously the previous Juventus manager who's jumped back into the job. Allegri, exactly, was available. It's probably only Antonio Conte, to be honest with you, man, which kind of screams at you, and that'd be a very interesting one because I'm a big fan of Conte, to be honest with you. And I think he's good. He's a great manager on a lot of different levels. I think he's a very good coach. I think he's a very good coach in how he sets up his teams. I think he's a kind of strong personality. And I think one of the reasons why he jumped obviously into Milan, he had a couple of great seasons there. I think what he did there was fantastic in such a short period of time. But obviously, word came down the chain that he had to get rid of a few players there. There was no room for further investment in the squad, and he'd had enough. And he's the one for me at the moment, if you're looking at getting somebody in of real kind of stature, not just stature, but kind of real quality. He's the one for me, and it'd be interesting to see, if any phone calls are made in his direction to the extent of, look, just sit. Are you prepared to sit for a few months? There could potentially be a job for you here if you're patient enough, maybe in the new year. But he's certainly one for me who absolutely screams out in terms of about a natural fit, like, you know what I mean. But someone of real top quality.
Chatter about Stevie G, obviously. He might be one of the early favourites, I think, for it. Based on the work that he's doing, obviously, at Rangers. With dealing with that sums of money, you're suddenly at one of the, if not the richest club in the world. Slightly different kettle of fish, Kenny, when you're dealing with that level of player and that level of budget.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is an interesting one. Yeah, I've been impressed with the job he's done up there. I've got to be honest with you. It's not as if he went up there, lads, wasn't. There was a huge war chest there available to him.
Yeah, but is that not like there's nothing in that then to recommend him almost for this job? Like, he's not used to dealing. No. Sorry, couldn't Adrian. No, but for me, it's more important in terms of looking at a manager in terms of what he can do with the squad that he has available to him. Can he tap into the squad and get the very best out of players available to him? If he's good at that, and that means in terms of how you set up your team, the tactical setup of the team, how you deal with the players on a one-to-one basis. You know, can you pull the kind of dressing room together, team environment, all of those things. If you can do that, regardless, the quality of players in the dressing room, for me, that's the most important thing. If you can do that, you can pretty much do it at any level with any type of player. Now, I know big egos come into it, the higher you go up, and the players that you bring in, kind of world class players. But if you have that ability to kind of win a dressing room over and get the very best out of the players you have available to you, for me, that's first and foremost what you're looking for. And I think he's done that, to be fair to him, at Rangers. Well, from afar anyway. I haven't been watching it that closely, but I like the way he speaks. I like the way he's set up his team, and I think he's done a really good job up there for his first managerial post. I think it's a natural fit. I think it's only a matter of time for me when he bounces back to Anfield. That's a given for me. So I think it's I'm interested with Jared in terms of how. First of all, in terms of how Liverpool perceive him, in terms of where they feel he needs to be in his managerial career before they'll take him back to Anfield. Is it sufficient for him to park himself in Glasgow, Adrian, for another 2 or 3 years, get more experience, more European experience with Rangers, a couple of more league titles, wherever it is? Will that be sufficient for the owners at Liverpool then to say in 2 or 3 years' time, when invariably Klopp departs, that's sufficient now, that body of work you've done at Glasgow, that's enough now, we'll take you? Or whether they feel, and maybe Gerrard feels, I need to go and bounce from Rangers into another environment, maybe a more demanding environment to an extent, Newcastle, maybe that, and prove myself there and build something there at Newcastle, and maybe then further down the road that'll be his avenue back to Liverpool. Don't know how you two lads see it.
I was going to ask, what do you think is the more likely of those two things? Because to me it does seem that it's the second of those two situations where Gerrard will think maybe he just need one more job just to persuade the hierarchy at Anfield, because he's a level above, I think, at this point where Lampard was before taking Chelsea. But I still think is there a whiff around that sort of ex-player getting appointed still after Lampard at Chelsea, and let's see what happens with Solskjaer at Manchester United, and to a certain extent Arteta at Arsenal. You can't really say any of those three have worked out brilliantly yet, that they've all sort of learned on the job. And I wonder, does Gerrard get put into that category now, but doesn't get put in that category if he takes one more job and actually succeeds?
Well, Lampard could have gone to Rangers and done what Stevie G is doing. We just don't know, right? Like, there is a middle ground of, like, on your point, if Gerrard does need to go to an Aston Villa or to another club, doesn't he, really, before, like, Liverpool are not going to, despite his club status as a club legend, surely taking a punt. They'll be taking a major punt. With all due respect, I'd be saying the same if he was managing Celtic. Yeah,
I disagree with you, to be honest with you, for the reasons that I've said. I think a dressing room is a dressing room, and I don't see a huge amount of difference between a dressing room in Newcastle, Aston Villa, or Glasgow Rangers Football Club. Those things that I'm talking about in terms of managerial qualities, in terms of man management, how you deal individually with players, with the group itself, the tactical setup of the team, your understanding of the game, how you perceive it, and how you can put a team together and really get the very best of the players you have available to you. I mean that for me is the absolute key, and I think he's come close to that at Glasgow, and I think he's getting better every year. I think European experience as well will help, and that'll kind of help his development as a manager. I think he's a strong character. Gerrard, he seems to have that bit of, whatever it is, belligerence there's there, isn't he? You can kind of get a bit of a sense of it. I think the kind of personality traits are there for him to walk into a club like Liverpool and have an impact. And I think there's actually, from his point of view, there's real risk in terms of making a jump to somewhere like Newcastle or somewhere else, for potential for it to go badly wrong. I think he was being a little bit clever. I think for me, it'd probably be better advised to sit where he is and stay on that horse up in Glasgow and see how successfully it can be there. And I think for me that's sufficient if he continues on his kind of upward trajectory that he's on at Glasgow Rangers. I think for me there's a strong argument there that's enough, that's sufficient for Liverpool. It's always a calculated risk, lads, isn't there, in terms of young managers. You mentioned a few of them there. You talk about Lampard. I wouldn't consider Lampard necessarily a failure. I'm still a big fan of Frank Lampard. I think he can kind of bounce back and still be successful. But yeah, that kind of transfer, that managerial kind of merry-go-round would be interesting kind of going forward. Gerrard, Conte, and that Newcastle position, because that's a job which every manager will be kind of salivating over.
No, Party, you haven't mentioned yet the obvious source of the money, and a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth about all this happening. Not the fans, by the way. I think the Supporters Trust did a survey to say that 94% of Newcastle fans were behind this happening. No part of you is a little bit put off by the source of the money?
Oh, it is. Yeah, you've mentioned it there. It does stick in the gut. I'd have to admit that, and it'd be nice. Look, I've mentioned before about the fans and the club, and I'm delighted for them. That's absolutely the case. But I think you can park that to the side. But there is that kind of elephant in the room, and I think it's important that it gets kind of referenced. You can talk about generally their kind of the country itself and kind of how they operate and how they treat their citizens, maybe women in particular. But I think if anything kind of encapsulates the issues in regards to how the country is run, it was the murder of that Saudi journalist in the Saudi embassy in Turkey. I mean, that was a pretty despicable, disgusting act, and I think that needs to be referenced. I think anybody who's read it, and I'd be the same as anybody else, a layman just picking up the paper, and I've read as much as anybody else, but pretty kind of sickening what happened there, in terms of how that man was lured into the embassy under false pretenses and treated the way he was. So I have a huge amount of sympathy for his family. I think it was his fiancée at the time. He was actually going there, wasn't he, to get papers so he could actually marry his fiancée at the time, and she's walking around. She's obviously trying to fight his case, and you hear quotes for her obviously trying to keep the case in the public on the spotlight, but not too many people, I don't think, are interested in listening, and we won't hear too much of it over the coming weeks in relation to the Newcastle story. But I think it's important that it is kind of referenced, and it's people are made aware of it, and I think it'd be nice to see some kind of acknowledgement somewhere, whether it's the Premier League or somewhere else. I don't think
well,
it'll be forthcoming, will it?
That ship has sailed now almost, hasn't it? Because that was the opportunity the Premier League had to say we don't want to be associated with this regime. And you mentioned that one story there, and it's not an outlier by any stretch of the imagination. You only have to do a very quick Google to figure out that there's plenty of those types of stories about. How do we square all this off, right? Because we've just spent 15 minutes talking about what's going to happen on the pitch, and that's going to be repeated up and down this country and up and down other countries around the UK and further afield ad infinitum now, right? For as long as this the Saudis are involved in the club. What I'm saying is it's going to move on from conversations around this. It's going to move into a football context. Sports washing, has been mentioned on this show during the week, works. It's difficult to know exactly how we manage all this when we're previewing Newcastle against Aston Villa, we're previewing Newcastle against Leeds. This stuff just doesn't come up, and suddenly we're talking about all of this in a very positive light.
Yeah, no, it's true. I don't think we can do anything about it. In all honesty, this is where the game's gone. The amount of investment that's coming into the game over the previous whatever it is, like these kind of billionaires and now state-owned football clubs. It's interesting, really. I think one of the criteria for this takeover, getting the green light, was if I read it correctly, was the fact that the private investment fund from Saudi Arabia was strictly, there was some distance put between that and the actual state itself, as if to say the private investment fund actually existed independently.
Well, it makes
from
no sense, Kenny. It makes no sense. It's 80% of Newcastle is owned by the Saudi State Investment Fund, which is run by Mohammed bin Salman. It makes absolutely no sense at all.
It's almost an admission, the fact that they're trying to create that distance. I know that there are rules about states not being able to own football clubs, and maybe that's the reason, but there's also a washing of the image that's going on here, where it's like they realise that opening up the fact that this is owned by by Saudi Arabia is not a good look, and they're almost very self-aware of what the image is. Like, I mean, the thing is, this is absolutely nothing new. Like when we look at Paris Saint-Germain or Manchester City, I mean, there is a list as long as your arm if you want to go through human rights abuses that are on a par with Saudi Arabia in some respects. And have we forgotten about that, or when it comes to the biggest moments, do we all of a sudden have these conversations more? And I just wonder, how has that changed over the last couple of years? If you're a glass half full person, you could say that, you know, the last day when it was PSG against Manchester City, there were a couple of pieces written about this being a pretty grotesque representation of where modern football is at. On the other hand, you might say, well, actually, everybody's just talking about Lionel Messi, or everybody's just talking about what's going on at Manchester City. And then the big test is obviously going to be at the end of next year when it comes to the Qatar World Cup, and what sort of blowback there is to the price that's been paid on a human level for putting that show on next year. And you suspect that once the games get underway, that will be very much in the rearview mirror, and I think that'll be crystallised in particular when it comes to, you know, a heavy month of football as opposed to a state owning a football club.
Yeah, and there's obviously been deals done behind the scenes there in terms of Qatar and Saudi Arabia in terms of getting this deal over the line, in terms of like the Premier League stream over the past couple of years, being sports, isn't it, which comes out of Qatar, and there's been issues there with Saudi Arabia in terms of piracy and this and that, and talk of like £1 billion being paid by Saudi Arabia to Qatar to kind of settle that outstanding issue, to kind of smooth the way for this particular takeover. And then of course, you know, there's a lot of politics in that region anyway, isn't there? There's a proxy war being fought over there anyway, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Yemen anyway, isn't there? So there's all of that, and I wouldn't want to be sitting here making, because I'll be the very same, like I'll walk out this year out today and then that'll be the end of it. You know what I mean, it'll be parked to the back of my head. But I think it's important, these things, they're not going to push under the carpet. Maybe you know, Saudi Arabia, the Mohammed bin Salman, he won't be speaking directly to the camera, but I think it's important these things are kind of spoken about and they're put out there, and you know, some people are held to account over some of the stuff that we've been talking about today. Is it going to change? Probably not. The nature of the beast now, the money's involved, and the Premier League, where it's going, you feel as if the game's almost been taken away from us to a large degree. I think people will accept that. But yeah, I think it's a pretty sad day though. I think if people feel unable to bring these issues to the fore and kind of speak about them in public, or you know, you're reprimanded, or you're kind of dismissed, or you feel as if potentially there's some kind of repercussion if you actually speak out about these things. I think that's probably a pretty dark place we're heading for if that's going to be the case. Like, so we can't change everything overnight, but I think it's important at least people speak out, and these things are put out in the public domain, and people at least are made aware of them. And maybe, lads, you could make the argument it's a pretty weak one, the fact that Saudi Arabia have taken over Newcastle. Maybe they will be held accountable a little bit more now. Maybe they'll have to face up to a few of these kind of criticism, these questions from people, from journalists, where that may not have been the case previously. So they might have to accept a little bit of responsibility and actually come out publicly and speak and address a few of these things. And maybe in the long term, maybe that might accelerate a little bit of change in some of these countries for the better. Who knows? I mean, it's a pretty weak argument, to be honest with you.
Well, look, it is a fair point that maybe it has a sort of an about-face impact on the source of where this money is coming from, but it is definitely hard to see. Like, you listen to, there was a podcast that was republished again during the week from The Guardian from last year, where a woman whose sister had been imprisoned in the state for basically nothing, including something to do with driving. But she was an activist and she was a voice for women's rights in the country. And she'd been sexually abused after being arrested for no reason, and she was electrocuted. And her sister spoke about the police state nature of the country and no freedom of speech. And then you hear Amanda Staveley yesterday, and she's talking about they're going to do great things for the community in Newcastle. And look, they probably will, but bloody hell, it's just grim. And it ain't going anywhere. And I think it's probably important that we continue to have the conversation. And like Eoin says, around the bigger games, because Newcastle are going to be, if this all plays out exactly the way they plan it, they're going to be contending sooner rather than later for Premier League titles and for Champions League titles and all that, the rest of that stuff. So it's important that we continue to have that conversation. Owen, you were going to say something there, were you?
Well, I'm just going to make the point that Manchester City have done that exact thing that Amanda Staveley is promising for Newcastle, that by all accounts the community around Manchester City have actually benefited quite a bit from the financial investment. But that is also part of the sport washing. These people aren't stupid. They know that the community matters when it comes to these football clubs, particularly in the north of England. And investing in the community is just a genius way of helping tap into the sports washing idea. Like, I would say that really when you compare it to, say, Manchester United, like they're, not that they're in it for sports washing whatsoever, they're in it for a financial gain, it seems. And you can just see it's chalk and cheese when it comes to how the fans look at their ownership. Like, I would say Manchester City are delighted with their owners. Newcastle United, the first signs, they're delighted with their new owners, and I don't think that'll change over the years. Whereas it was interesting yesterday in the paper that you had that little sidebar of the Glazers taking out more money from Manchester United, and beside the story of the Saudi takeover at Newcastle, and you ask yourself, which of these fan groups is going to be more annoyed with their ownership? Is it going to be the one that is connected to human rights atrocities, or is it going to be the one that is connected to grotesque capitalists? And it's obviously going to be the second one, and that is the grim reality of where football is at the moment, and investing in the local community in Newcastle. I mean, it is just all part of the image. We are pushing forward this narrative that we're actually okay, you know.
It's a topic we're definitely going to come back to over the course of the morning as well. You are watching OTB AM. Delighted to have you along with us this morning. It is 7 minutes to 8 on this Friday morning, and lots of comments coming into us. Do keep them coming over the next little while. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 a.m. this morning. We're going to continue our chat with Kenny in just a couple of moments' time. We're going to talk a little bit of Ireland as well. The GPA have been out and had their say on whether it's Plan A or Plan B they're backing, and it's very firmly in Plan B, and some questions for the GEA as well arising from that yesterday. Eoin was at the press conference and will bring us all the reaction from that just after 8 this morning. 8:30, we'll let you know what's happening across the back pages this morning. Sports news, Will O'Callaghan joining us at 20 to 9. Alan Quinlan talks all things rugby at 10 to 9. We've a very special live crappy quiz with three great football men coming your way at 9:10. And then Tom Parsons, who was on the show with Nathan last night, at 9:30. Kenny, you're pumped for the crappy quiz this morning, I believe?
I am hoping Owen's put in the due diligence on this occasion, which was severely lacking the last time
It's always severely lacking.
Yeah,
today's not
that's
that day,
the only comment.
Today's one day it's not lacking.
I thought the criticism the last time Owen actually hurt. I thought I got underneath Owen's skin last time. I sensed the reaction last time, the barrage of criticism which came his way. So
why wouldn't it get under my skin?
You know they've rolled out the big dogs for this one, Kenny.
Is that right?
It's you versus me.
I got my old Trivia Pursuit board out last night. I was swapping up in a few questions, only to be told it's purely sports related. I thought it was more of a
Good at Trivial Pursuit?
a broad spectrum of questions.
What would your specialist topic at Trivial Pursuit be?
Well. Now sport and leisure, wasn't it? But I would say sport, but there was always that one leisure question in there which tricked you up, didn't it? So it was geography, maybe, to be honest with you.
I love geography, I must say,
Yeah. I was always, that initial couple of years in geography in school I loved. You know, the map of the world, Adrian, capital cities, rivers and mountains, any type of that kind of very basic, clearly.
Yeah.
I was your man. Once geography started going into the realm of, precipitation, that's it. Clouds, how do clouds form?
That's science, Kenny. It's nonsense that's ever categorised.
Forget it.
And you'd be a history man, too, would you?
History, geography, the two. But Kenny, I'm sure that you get that same rush of, what is the capital of Georgia? And when they turn over that card in Trivial Pursuit, and you're like, Tbilisi, play there, mate. And I would say that you on Christmas Day are just like, play there, played there, and everybody's like, how can we compete with this? This guy's played in every backwater in the entirety of Europe, and he knows all these cities.
Played badly in every backwater, yeah. I wouldn't go that far, to be honest. I haven't got that many caps on, in all honesty, but yeah, I did enjoy the game. It was a Christmas game. Is that people still... I remember people traditionally use every Christmas, wherever it was, Stephen's Day, there was a designated time, whoosh, to get around and have the trip. So wasn't there?
Yeah.
Almost
I don't
religiously.
think it happens anymore, does it? It's
it does.
Does it?
Yeah, it does in our house. I mean, what are you doing, like watching?
Well, what else are you doing in Fireys, I suppose, is probably the question there. There's literally this, Trivial Pursuit board.
And they got heated.
Head up to look at the planes coming in at Farm 4, and that's kind of it. Like.
Oh, it's bad.
Is
went
it,
off on
Kenny?
a tangent there.
Yeah, that's a horrible thing to say.
Kenny, I was in Fireys. I can say this with some
I
authority.
gladly jump in a plane to Farm 4.
Thank you, Kenny.
Well, you would, and then
even in the scales.
You'd be even happier to jump on it to get the hell out of there.
God, this is like, I mean, what do people even do on Christmas Day around Europe? Like, are they going out?
Where's that come from?
Yeah,
Where's
people
that
go
come
out.
from,
Yeah,
Adrian?
people they go out to do all sorts. They jump in the water. They do all kinds of things. But I just don't know. The board game thing seems to have, in modern society, Fireys notwithstanding, seems to have, become a thing of the past.
Disagree.
Somebody's pointed out here on YouTube, which just sort of bypassed me as we all sat around the table here to gather for this morning's show, that Will says Kenny and Sheahan's tops are exactly the same colour, which I hadn't appreciated at all, lads. That's
got the memo.
unbelievable colour coordination.
Sent an
Like-
SMS.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, Sheahan is...
Oh, the
I know you don't worry about it.
Sheahan. Maybe Owen. Maybe
It's
just
a
Owen.
Fireys
Are we not on first name terms?
I'm just,
Yeah,
this is what
that's
this
what
is.
I thought. I mean,
I'm just reading out what Will has sent.
you wouldn't
through.
call him.
He's got a
Cunningham.
short. That's a green short. This is a hoodie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Same colour, fair
Yeah,
enough.
basically the same colour. It's fair play to you.
Jeez, it's hardly like
We're,
million to one shot, is it?
We're getting ready for a hard weekend, camouflaging ourselves for the army, Kenny. That's what we're at. Bit of paintball.
What else? We've got loads of comments coming in here. Happy Friday, lads. Always entertaining with King Kenny, says Stephen Fraser. Good morning to you, Stephen. Kevin O'Reilly. Everyone questioning the new owners of Newcastle and all the sports washing talk. Should the British government sell arms to the Saudis? Owners of Man City, PSG and Chelsea all got a pass. Real world. And I definitely think there's an element of that we'll see unfolding over the next few years. I'm a Newcastle fan, says Stephen McNamara here, against this takeover. Yemen, Khashoggi, etc. Shameful. I'm also no fan of Bruce, but he's told... what's happening soon, unfair on him to mess him about. Well, it looks, Stephen, as if that's what's going to happen this morning. Would any amount of players, would any amount of money, this is a really good question from Shifty Lad here, any amount of money get the best players to play in the cold north of England?
Well, they got Tino Sprilla to turn up on the plane. Do you remember that picture of him getting off the plane? Newcastle Airport, the kind of snow was coming down. He had that big sheepskin on, didn't he, around the shoulders?
Like, is it? I mean, you've played in both places, Kenny. Is Newcastle that much colder than Manchester?
What I will say, I had a year up there. Obviously, Sunderland supporters, they might be crying this morning thinking, why have they taken over our football club? I think it's an argument that's a sleeping giant up there as well. Sunderland, I'm very surprised that big investment hasn't coming in to that football club, I'd add, considering their kind of support base. But no, I had like 9 months up there, lads, and I'll be honest with you, I loved it. It's a great part
But
of
the
the
footballers
world.
don't
Great
live
people.
up in Newcastle or Sunderland, right? They live in Durham or...
Well, they don't live on Newcastle High Street. They don't pitch a tent in Newcastle now, but they live in the surrounding areas like suburbia
Like a
around,
nice
around
village.
it. Same as every town. You can make that argument for every town. Adrian, to be honest with you, I think that's a pretty weak one. Like, no, they do. It's not as if they, it's not as if they're kind of, West London and private aircraft up every day. They're in the surrounding areas, some beautiful villages around Sunderland, Newcastle.
Who was
I
it?
don't remember. I was, to be honest with you. There, I was up in.
Where did you live?
I was in Durham.
Durham. See, they all live in Durham. That's
I
what
was in with the
happens.
students. I'll be honest with you. I was there about 3 months. I got to be honest. I don't think I saw one football top during the first months I was there. A massive student population there. It's kind of it's a beautiful little town, to be honest. I'm only stone's throw from this city centre, but it's a great place to live. It's beautiful. I mean, you're talking about why would you go up there? I mean, why wouldn't you? If you spent a bit of time up there in Northumberland, looking at your face there, Adrian, you clearly haven't, like the blank expression. You'd rather talk about Farnham 4 and criticise Eoin and that part of Ireland. But no, it's gorgeous. The Dales, moors up there, it's absolutely breathtaking. The people themselves, the people are great.
Yeah, but sure, the lads aren't going up there for the beautiful scenery. And who was it?
Why wouldn't you?
Who was it?
Why
Was
wouldn't you?
it?
Quality of life, Adrian. Quality of
Jamie
life.
Redknapp?
It's why people are going and coming back out with Kerry. They've gone down there on their Zoom calls and they're coming back to Dublin.
Who was it
That's
that
why
didn't
they're
want to move
falling
away
back in
from?
love with the land.
Who was
Am
it
I right on?
that
Exactly,
that
we're
either
at one.
moved to Tottenham or didn't want to move away from Tottenham because their wife wanted cinema tickets? What was that? Remember that years ago?
Right, Jay. So
Somebody
you're telling me there's no
somebody will get in
cinemas up in the
contact.
north?
No,
You're
but
going to make an argument now.
The point was more that they wanted to be living in cosmopolitan London rather than the back end of nowhere. I mean, with all due respect.
Yeah, but I think you're making like I think that's probably the case in one or two situations. But if you're going up there, I'd suggest if you're going up there as a family, like young kids and stuff, and you're looking for a nice, good environment for the kids to grow up, I don't think there's a better place in the UK, in all honesty. So yeah, but as I think you're right, money talks. The kind of contracts they're going to be throwing around, the wages they're going to be throwing at players, I think by and large players will suck it up.
We'll talk in a bit more detail about Ireland. We've only a few minutes here, but I have gone from a place of I'm actually quite excited when Ireland games are upcoming now. Now I get less excited often once they begin, or maybe more to the point once they end, and we haven't ground out the result. But just with the young players that are there, the quality that admittedly needs to be their sort of rough diamonds, I suppose, at the minute. But I am a little bit excited. I do get excited about the Ireland games when they come around now. Are you in the same boat, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, well, I always have been, to be honest with you. I don't remember too many occasions since I finished playing. The games haven't come around, and there is that little bit of buzz. I really do look forward to the games, and in all circumstances, teams, playing well, not playing well, going through a bit of a trough or playing well. It's still the same for me when kind of gets to the day before and the hours leading up to the game. There's always a bit of a buzz of excitement and expectancy, yeah.
And is that specific to this group right now, or how are you feeling about it?
No, generally speaking. Yeah, generally speaking, it's nice to watch the team play, even to get down to the stadium occasionally, which I do. It's not the same. It's not Lansdowne anymore. Thank God, say the two lads. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's different for me. That was pretty unique. I miss it. I've got to be honest with you. And fully enough, I got a text off. It was a WhatsApp message from somebody, and they had a little picture on the top. That little picture people put on their
Profile pic. Yeah.
WhatsApp things, and it was a side view of the old Lansdowne stand where the train goes underneath behind it. It was just shot a little bit back, and it was kind of magical. Hadn't seen a picture for such a long time.
Would you be a big WhatsApp man, Kenny? I never would have had you down for WhatsApp.
No, I am. No, I'm not. I do a little bit now, to be honest. The young fellas set it up for me a year or two ago, and then once you're up, then people start bouncing stuff off you. You can't control it. Once they're in, it's like a little worm, isn't it, in your computer or something like that. Once you're set up, then you start receiving. I think
From
it is
who?
good.
Who you're
No, I think it's good. No, I wouldn't. I would have texted. I would have texted people prior to that. So what I like about the WhatsApp is the pictures. It's people.
Memes.
The young,
it's
the
good.
kids can say
Emojis. What are we talking about here?
no
It's
pictures
just
like.
viral photos,
A lot
like-
of, some lads will say, if there's something like an article or something, they can
Yeah,
send you like a picture or a screenshot, and it comes up quick
Right.
on. You don't have to go independently into the phone to try and send a photo or something or whatever. So it's
It's all connected, Kenny.
How did you manage on, was it Monday night? Without WhatsApp for a while? Remember it went down on Monday? Did you realise that?
Yeah,
What did you do with
that's
yourself?
right. Yeah. I was in the house. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have a huge burden. I can get away without it, to be honest with you.
Right. That's impressive.
Um,
Oh, come on.
what were we talking about? Lansdowne Road. What was the
Yeah.
what?
Because I remember, because obviously the dart used to come around the back, and it was funny because there was a couple of, obviously how the Dublin, Stephen Carr was from the same part of Dublin as I was, Northside. Carr's kind of Donamead, who was up in further up in Coolock, and I remember after the game, Carr's would jump on the dart. He'd grab his bag, he'd disappear out of the dressing room, and he'd walk up and grab the dart back to. Back home to his parents' house in Coolock, and that's
You're not getting mobbed.
Carsy's in the size of him. Bench is about 120. No, but that was kind of typical of the times a little bit. I'm not saying this was going back to the 50s, was it? You know what I mean? We're all getting paid and kind of penny farths and all that type of thing. But but that was just a little indication of the times, and that picture kind of kind of brought it back. I mean, it looks dilapidated, the stand, don't get me wrong. You'd look at it now, you think, look at the state of this, blah, blah, blah. But, different pictures in my head when I think back.
No, but we can look back at it now because it's been redeveloped.
nostalgia.
And, like, if we were still looking at the state of that place now, we'd obviously have different things to say about it. Did you start off there by saying you desperately miss it? Was that...
I feel like Kenny wanted had a rebuttal there on what you said, Adrian.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm quite buying into it. Like, so I don't know what you're saying, because you can't get your gourmet burger like in the old.
You're not saying that you long.
Now,
You're
in
sure
fairness,
talking
he's
about
onto
you.
something here.
I'm talking about you, Adrian.
Now,
You're
Kenny's
clearly
onto something
like-
here, Adrian, in fairness.
What are we talking about?
We know
What are
what
you
we're
talking about?
here.
You said
Let's bring
it.
some clarity to
Well, I'll bring clarity to the situation,
Thanks,
Kenny.
all right.
I mean, you're not a Twitter.com user. You don't engage in that. WhatsApp is where you begin and end, and that's
What's
fair
up?
enough.
What's up?
But on Twitter.com, at Who's Adrian Barry, account of this gentleman here, was at the Aviva Stadium, the old Lansdowne Road, as you might be familiar with, was in the prawn sandwich seats, had a couple of glasses of red and probably white wine as well, went straight to his
never drank
head
this stuff.
over the course of a couple of hours. Full-time whistle. Leinster have won the Pro 14, and he tweets a picture of the beautiful new Lansdowne Road, and it's like, is this possibly the greatest team that Ireland have ever produced in any sport ever? The wine gone to his head, the new Aviva Stadium, the prawn sandwich brigade to his head. Leinster Rugby, the greatest Irish team of all time ever.
I'm guessing I'm
There's a case
picturing
for that, like...
I mean,
I'm picturing one of these selfie sticks, Adrian. One of these selfie sticks that I've seen with people walking.
Kenny,
That one of
when
the,
you've had a couple of glasses of wine, holding a selfie stick out like that is it's a recipe for disaster. But like Kenny, look, at this conversation is brought up, sort of shoehorned into conversations every 6 months or so.
How was it?
The point absolutely stands, though. No, that Leinster.
Well, I don't know what your point is. That
The
is
point
my
being
point.
that
I don't know
Leinster-
what your
I
point
shouldn't have brought
is.
that up.
Leinster are one of the greatest teams that Ireland have ever produced. I think that's. You could certainly have a debate about that, and I mean, I would probably fall down and decide that that's probably true.
The point was more to do with the
I
prawn
appreciate
sandwich
that. I
nature
appreciate that.
of
Appreciate that.
your attachment.
But hang
to
on,
it.
you're not saying, Kenny, that you long for the old, cold, grim, grey Lansdowne Road.
I long for the days when we used to walk into that changing room underneath Lansdowne Road, hour and a half before the game, and everybody'd immediately go to the pile of towels, take their towel off, open it up, and place it on the brick floor immediately in front of where they used to change. So it covered an area of about 2 foot by 3, and you knew at least that towel area, your feet wouldn't be kind of frozen solid by the time that you went onto the football pitch, because it was that cold. Oh my
Was
God!
there no heating facilities in there?
Heating facilities, come on, dude. Your coat, you had your coat. That was it. That was the only
way.
heating facility. Put your coat on.
Wow.
It was so cold. But that was it. We didn't know anything.
But were you not coming from like great facilities?
No, but that's all part of it. Did anybody enjoy the fact it was freezing? Oh, the showers occasionally wouldn't be hot. Yeah, but yeah, of course not. But it's all part of the magic, isn't it? And kind of coming out the tunnel, coming out onto the pitch, the noise, different noise, isn't it? Different noise. Acoustics are different. Yeah, that stand may not have been. I actually saw a picture. A friend of mine has a picture in it. A pub he's just opened in Balbriggan. Am I out mention it?
Oh, go for it.
Oh, the Central. Grew up the Central in Balbriggan, and he's got a photo of Paul McGrath. It's like it's a beautiful photo of Paul jumping the head of ball, but the background is the little the little house.
Oh yeah.
The little the little house in the corner. Now I used to ball boy.
Wanderers,
I
was
ball
it?
boy once. Is it Wanderers down? Is that side? Was it?
I think it might have been.
But it used to be like it was just stood alone there. Didn't it was almost as if the ground was kind of built slowly around that. I think the ball boys used to get changed there. I was ball boy once years. I've forgotten all about it, to be honest with you. One evening, miserable evening.
For Ireland?
I think I'm actually. I can barely remember. There's a bit of footage there somewhere. A goalkeeper going to get a ball and. And picking up the ball and throwing it to the goalkeeper. Yeah, so that picture of Paul majestic, and you look behind and there's this little. People might be looking at thinking, it's this little house there. That's very highly unusual, but it was highly unusual. That's exactly what it was. Like it was kind of unique. So all of those things, that picture that it was sent, all those kind of little memories there. So for me, it's magic, and I don't get that. I mean, obviously, I've never played it at the Aviva. I walked around. It's magnificent. It's beautiful, and. All of those things looks the business like, but I don't get that. I don't get that. No, I don't get that buzz. Not the same buzz for me.
I can only imagine 10-year-old Kenny Cunningham throwing the ball back to the keeper, going, "All right, listen, Keep it tight at the back. Let's get a bit more vocal.
Higher line, higher defensive line.
Who was the keeper that you would have
More
been?
Compact.
Who would have been in goal for Ireland at that point?
Do you know what it might have been? Was Seamus McDonough?
Right.
Yeah, because I got to know Seamus a little bit after that. Like, yeah, possibly Seamus.
Class.
Everybody had a little stint. How did that work, the ball boys? Surprised I actually don't know how that came about, to be honest with you.
Well, somebody with
Schoolboy
access to the
affiliate.
archive needs to get busy this afternoon and pluck that out.
I wouldn't have had any. I
Big
wouldn't
head of
have had
hair,
any
Kenny.
contacts. I
Big
wouldn't have
head.
had any contacts. You know, to kind of, open doors for me back in the day there, age and.
You weren't a member of Wanderers Rugby Club.
Like it.
Right, do keep the comments coming into us. We've lots more. We're going to get a bit more in depth with Kenny on the Ireland stuff, particularly, and a bit of a preview to the upcoming games and get his thoughts and all of that. So if you have any questions, thoughts, anything like that, do lash them into us about that. Alan Quinlan coming up a little bit later on as well. It's 11 minutes past 8. Pack show still to come right here on OTB AM. We're going to hear from Quinny. Very special crappy quiz, live crappy quiz. Kenny versus Nathan versus myself coming up a little bit later on, but we're going to be talking about GEA. Sean Kelly's going to join us, the former GEA president, and Eoin's been out and about the press conference yesterday as well. GEA Special Congress next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Football Pod with Paddy and Andy, our new weekly Gaelic football show with Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran.
I always knew I would set himself, I don't want to leave until I play at least one game of AFL. So I persisted the first year, played a game. You get an incentive for playing a game, you get them actual money. So at that stage, I was like, right, I want to try again. So when I the next year, I'll never get it. Every time I've got selected to play a game, I'll just send my mum a wee money bag emoji and that man was playing the next game. Because in my head I was playing a game, but to play the next game was going with more money. That's the honesty, that's what was getting me.
Talking like a true professional athlete.
Download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the GAA podcast feed now.
The Chargers look amazing. The real key for them is that Mike Williams is playing to his potential, and because Mike Williams, well, outside of the fact that Herbert is incredible and is arguably the best quarterback in the league right now, he's playing to his potential, which means when teams try and focus on Keenan Allen or they try and stop Austin Eckler, Williams is suddenly outside one-on-one all the time, and Justin Herbert's just like, okay, I'll throw it to him, I'll take him, because he's a beast, he's a monster, he's going to go and win the ball for me, and he's going to make plays. And Herbert's been unstoppable on third downs, he's unstoppable on fourth downs. It does not matter what the defense does to him. He just does whatever he wants to do, and he does it at his own pace. And the Raiders found that out in a very, very unfortunate way, because they got just manhandled and swept aside on that Monday Night Football game. There's an inevitability about the Chargers right now, and I think they're the best team in football right now, because every game they play, nothing seems to rattle them. Like they're even the game they lost, like they weren't overly, they weren't overwhelmed. They weren't really like showing major flaws. This is such a well-rounded team, a team that's playing to a really high level, and they're getting decent coaching. They changed their coaching, got a rookie coach. I don't think there's anything necessarily spectacular the coaching staff is doing, but the tide has turned with the Chargers. They used to be the team where it felt inevitably someone was going to get hurt. They were going to miss a field goal at the end of the game. They were going to have a fumbled snap. They were going to have some ridiculous thing. It always felt like watching Naked Gun 33 and third when he's doing the baseball game at the end, where there's just nonsense things happening all over the field and in the crowd.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for quick start insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
You're welcome back. 14 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning, and you'll have heard Cian Fahey and Ronan Mullen in the ad break on The Snap, which is our NFL show, which you'll catch every Thursday on our OTB channels. Now we're turning our attention over the next little while to the GAA and to Special Congress, which is coming up on the 23rd of October. We're going to be joined by former president of the GAA, Sean Kelly, in just a few minutes. But before that, the GPA held a press conference yesterday to row behind Proposal B ahead of Special Congress. I was out at the Crown Plaza in Santry to chat to a few of the intercounty players who are up for interview. In this piece, you're going to hear Niall Morgan, then you're going to hear Podge Collins, then you're going to hear Mickey Quinn. They're the three voices that I spoke to yesterday. Have a look.
Just like from our players, I've done a bit of a survey. You're never going to get the full reply back. That's the norm with any survey. It's like if you go to pre-election votes, you never get the same amount of people that will actually vote in the election, and it was the same with me and the team. But like within our dressing room, we had over the majority of players in terms of the 60% majority that's needed at Congress, and that wanted Proposal B. So it's going to split people, and people are going to want to stay the same. Some people might want Proposal A, but in my opinion, the system's broken at the minute. We need change. The GA task force, they've come up with these proposals. They're not GPA proposals, which I think some people are getting lost in. These are from the GA working task force, and we're throwing our weight behind Proposal B simply because that's what the majority of the players want.
Proposal A has nearly been put to bed by nearly every stakeholder, even the fixture task force that put it out there, I think, for a finish, kind of put that to bed. So it really is Proposal B or the status quo. And like, from when you put out something like a new proposal, people are going to pick holes in it, they're going to try find flaws in it, and that's just natural. But like, if you started picking flaws in the status quo, like, it's very hard for someone outside, let's say the GA, to even comprehend how it operates with regards to like you talk about having a fair competition. There's just so many holes in it. So I think this is definitely better, and it's better for our games going forward. And I think as soon as it comes in, there's no way it could, like, even if it's a 3-year, let's say, trial period, it'll only develop. There might be a few tweaks and stuff to get it perfect, but I think it definitely is the way forward.
Yeah, after playing with Longford for 10 years, you're at the stage where you want a competition, you want to win something. And for me, I've won a Division 3 title and a Byrne Cup, and they were two things that I'll treasure no more than Niall Morgan. I'll treasure Sam Maguire, albeit that they're at different levels, but a win is a win, or a competition that you can win, that's what you want. Realistically, we're not at the level where we can win a Sam Maguire, and we're not at the level where we can win a Leinster either. And that's tough to say, but it's been realistic. Whereas a Tailteann Cup and Division 3, they're two competitions that are there for us, that if we get our ducks in a row and get things right, we can definitely challenge and win that.
Why are you happy to proceed with Proposal B when there is this idea out there that it's going to damage the Ulster Championship?
Yeah, I think it's an idea. The Ulster Championship is the most competitive at the minute, and nobody will argue with that. But it's still there. It's not going anywhere. It's still there, and in fact, it's now going to be a round-robin competition, which gives you even more competitive games against them rival teams. Before you get to the semi-final and final stage, you're still playing for the Anglo-Celt. It's not a pre-season competition. It's a provincial championship that we'll all still want to win. If we win a provincial championship out of Proposal B in the next couple of years, I'll cherish that medal just as much as I cherish this one, 2016s or 2017s.
We had Brian McAvoy of Ulster GAA with us on the show the other day, and he said that because you're removing the link between the Ulster Championship and the All-Ireland Championship, the Ulster Championship won't mean as much. You're in a better position to tell us because you've got Ulster medals. Will that be the case?
Absolutely not. This, in my opinion, this gives Ulster teams a better opportunity to compete for the Sam Maguire, because we're coming out, like this year for example, Cavan, Donegal, Monaghan, just to get out of Ulster, just to get to compete in an All-Ireland series, whereas in comparison, Kerry and Dublin basically walked their way through to their places in the semi-finals. So it's not saying that it's going to be easier to get there. It's just going to be a fairer basis where all the teams have to compete at the same level to get to the Sam Maguire.
Like, the fact that you're going to end up with 7 competitive championship games in the height of the summer, like, it just completely changed the mindset of every inter-county player. From what I can see, it just, like, from going from that whole mind frame of where teams might think, okay, the league's over now, we probably won't win Sam Maguire, it's going to be tough to win Sam Maguire, our year is pretty much over after the league. You're going to 7 competitive championship games, home and away. It gives you an extra buzz. Anyone that has doubts of will I play this year and won't play this year, I think they're even more leaning towards playing this year because of this proposal. I think it reinvigorates the championship, and ultimately you'll have players, stakeholders, fans, everyone involved in GA. It's just a better product. So I think it can't help but be positive.
The league has been one of the competitions that has been huge, and there's been huge emphasis put on it in the past. And for ourselves, league was our championship, whereas this is what it is now. Championship is league, and that's what we want, that there's an opportunity, and then there's a carrot there at the end that you can actually progress and move on, rather than, okay, we've seen it in the past where once league is over, there was an opportunity for lads to drop off the squad and maybe head off on a J1, whereas now it's all mingled in together, and that you actually have your same squad from start to finish. Whereas in the past we've seen that where maybe league campaign finishes and that turnover of players, 7 or 8 guys drop off the panel, and you're trying to tie for numbers to bring guys in for a Leinster campaign that maybe 2 more games. Whereas with this, the number of games, I think with Proposal B can be a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 17, including whatever route you go, Sam Maguire or Tailteann Cup, and that brings development and improvement.
If you finish 6th in Division 1, are you going to be like, fair enough, I mean, we weren't good enough to make it to the next round, and let those number 1 seeds in Division 3 and 4 take our place?
Yeah, well, that was my initial reservation over the proposal, was that, if you finish 6th, 7th or 8th, even in Division 1, like, surely you still deserve your chance at the Sam Maguire compared to Division 3 and 4. And it was Podge Collins that put me right on it. You had your chance. If we got beat once this year, we were out. If we got beat twice in previous years, we were out. If you get beat, it'll probably take 3 defeats to get you out of that top 5. If you're beat 3 times, why do you deserve a chance at winning Sam Maguire?
We went down to Clarny this year and took a heavy beating, and that's the end of our year. And like, as a Clare player, it's very demoralising when you're going away and you've a long winter to think about that. Now, fortunately, I'm with a club that's very competitive in hurling and football, and I'm very fortunate that that's the case. But maybe like for clubs that are intermediate or junior and maybe not competing at senior, it can be a very long winter thinking about how disappointing that year was. So this just kind of opens up the door to a completely different mindset. You've every year going away from it, you'll probably actually be taking a lot more from it than a hammering by Kerry down in Kerry, as what happened to us this year. And we weren't the only ones that fell victim to that. But yeah, it's just like, how, as a Clare player going away this year, if you're coming back to that again next year, it'd be very hard. Players could be, like, it's a very hard to, like, you obviously want to compete against the likes of Kerry, and when we do get them in Cusack Park, we do compete well against them, and we haven't turned them over. But yeah, it's obviously something that we definitely be thinking about in Clare.
We're still looking for a manager. The search is still on. Having a proposal be on the table, new manager, it's a new change. It's a new opportunity for players to want to play for Longford. What's their reason for playing for Longford? At the moment, everyone will have their own individual reasons on top, but having that opportunity for success and wearing a Longford jersey, playing in Croke Park on the big stage, on our big stage, not an All-Ireland final, that could be our big stage, rather than going to Croke Park and it's the most lonely place that you'll go to, playing Dublin in the defeat that we've struggled, and that has caused repercussions that have set us back. Whereas Proposal B can give that chance to improve and get better, and I think there's an excitement that it brings not only to the players but to fans, to people in Longford, in your Leitrim's, in your counties, in Division 3 and 4, that there's an opportunity here, and it promotes the game. Like, that's the big thing, I think, where we kind of forget. You see all the Tyrone jerseys and the Dublin and the Kerry jerseys, but I'm in Longford every day of the week, and I don't see a Longford jersey, any random person walking around in it. That's something that hasn't been in Longford in a long time. Having that opportunity that people are proud to wear the Longford jersey because they're in the chance of winning something, that's something going forward that I take, whether I'm a player or whether I'm involved in Longford in some capacity, that I can take that, okay, this change is progressing and helping with football as a whole, not just for me as a player, but for the county of Longford.
Yeah, that's Mickey Quinn wrapping up. Owen's special report from yesterday on.
Yeah, indeed. Interesting hearing from everybody there at the GPA event yesterday, where I think we probably knew beforehand that there was going to be unanimous support for Proposal B ahead of Special Congress. What's interesting, and we're going to get into this with Sean Kelly in just a moment, is the politics that surround this. And each one of those players said the exact same thing in their interviews, which was, we got to remember, this is not a GPA motion, this is a GAA motion. And the subtext to that is that the players maybe feel that if this was a GPA motion, there is no prayer of this passing in Congress, that there is almost that edge that exists in the view of the Congress delegates when it comes to the GPA. And I don't know why that exists. Like, maybe there are right reasons for it, maybe there are wrong reasons for it. I think it might more be the latter case than that. But there is an acute awareness here that they want to distance themselves from being the creators of this. They want to put this on the GAA because they know well that the only way this thing passes is if there are powers that be within Croke Park who actually endorse this. It's the only way the Super 8's passed. It's the only way Rule 42 passed.
Because he was at the head of the GAA at a time where Rule 42 was brought in, and not by a huge margin, needing that 2/3 as well. I think it was 227 to 97 in the end in favour of abolishing Rule 42 effectively at the time, because he was in charge around that. And this is such an important issue, we thought it was a good time to catch up with the former GAA president, Sean Kelly, who's on the line now. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. Good to meet you.
Thanks for taking the call. In summation here, it's, as Podge Collins said at the start of that piece, it's Plan B versus status quo. How do you see this playing out?
I think he's probably right. I can't see too many going for the first proposal, which basically banishes the weakest counties in one province into another to be further penalised for not being good enough. You could nearly sum it up that way. Whereas the second proposal, I think, is better, even though I would have preferred my own proposal, which I put a number of years ago. But that's not on the agenda, so there's no point talking too much about that now. But I would think, though, that in this instance, more cognizance, I think, will be taken of what the GPA has to say, rather than the past, when relations were a bit more strained. And above all, I think officials will be more acutely aware now that it's the players who put their lives on hold to play for the county, and that has to be made more attractive than it is at the moment for the vast majority of counties. So there will be a lot of friction, especially in relation to downgrading the provincial competitions, because most of the officials would have some connection with their own provinces and so forth, and would always have valued them, and there's history there, and there's a lot of meaning there as well. But ultimately, I think the Croke Park officials will have to, if the first one is beaten, which I expect it will be, come out and say, listen, we've got to go for this. And above all, I think the voice of the GPA is going to be very important in this, because to get, now at least it's only 60%. In my time, it was 2000 majority over 66.5%. So to get that is difficult enough at any time. And the other problem is that many of the delegates will come already being mandated to vote one way or the other. And that too could create a problem.
Sean, there's been a level of silence from the top tier in Croke Park, and I get the sense that maybe that's a deliberate move. I think that if they really wanted to get behind this, we would have heard from them already. So why have they stayed out of this and not done a Pádraig Duffy, for example, with the Super 8s and really pushed what they believe to be the best idea?
Yeah, I'm actually a bit surprised at that. I think this is more democratic and let it up to the counties to decide. But the difficulty with that is they might decide to do neither. I'd much prefer to say, listen to a subcommittee, go away, look at it, come up with one proposal and let's run with it and back it. But when you come up with two proposals, then you can say back both. That's not possible. So it's just a tactic. It's what they decided to do, and we have to live with it. But definitely, in my own view, I would always prefer. That's where we operated, for instance, when we introduced the Christy Arena Nicky Rackle Cups, the All-Ireland Junior Intermediate Championships. There was just one proposal. We sold it as best we could. We gave the arguments and then asked them to back us, which they did, thankfully. That's the way I would do it, but there's obviously a different view which prevails at the moment, which is definitely probably more democratic. It creates more discussion, maybe, at county level and at club level and with the players. But is it ultimately the best? That's a view that you would have to discuss.
Are the votes open, Sean? Are they closed votes?
They're usually open votes for this.
Yeah,
in the sense that
in the sense, will people from the various counties know? Will I know which way Westmeath have voted?
No, not unless they reveal it, because for the physical meetings in the last number of years, every person had a little gadget which you pressed yes or no in, and then the result came up.
Yeah.
So you didn't know how a person actually voted unless
Is
the
that not a
gadgets
bit?
were being monitored by somebody.
Is it
But
not a
then
bit
they wouldn't
wild
be
that?
published. So
Is it not a bit?
And also some, I think, can stay online and vote online. So again,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be clearly visible to everybody.
And look, I don't know the answer to the question, but it sounds like that people don't know which way counties have voted, and it feels a bit wild that you can be mandated, but ultimately it's sort of dependent on, and I'm sure you'll know this from your time, a delegate turns up at the county board meeting and decides to vote one way or the other, and because it's not transparent, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, and that was actually the great fear when it came to voting on Rule 42. We had a big debate whether it should be a secret ballot or a show of hands at Central Council the night before the vote. And I got slated because I wanted an open vote. And I was asked, do you not trust the delegates? And obviously, of course, I said, oh, of course I trust the delegates. But actually, they decided to have a secret ballot. But in fairness, I think the delegates honoured their commitment. And I think the same would happen here. There'd be very few that wouldn't honour their mandate if they were given to it by a county, and probably to balance out one way or the other. So I don't think that would be a serious concern. It will be the way the debate will go and how they can convince the doubters who would have objections to, particularly, we're talking basically, I think, about the second motion now, to give it a try. And I think that's how you get people to support you. You say you're going to give it a try for 2-3 years and then we look at it. Because if you didn't give that opportunity, a lot of people wouldn't take the leap in the dark to go away from what they're used to try something new.
We have heard during the week as well that maybe some delegates aren't even open to the possibility of a trial. Brian McAvoy told us on the show that no, he flat out rejects the idea of even this coming in on a trial basis. So, Sean, why do you think that there is this hardline view against Proposal B? What is it about Proposal B that is really turning people off, some people off?
I think mainly because the provincial championships are being somewhat downgraded, and obviously Ulster, in fairness, have the best championship. It's very important to all their counties. They give a huge commitment and they want to see that. And that's why the proposal that I put forward, I think, would have worked perfectly. Essentially, play your provincial championships as is. The 2 finalists qualified for the Sam Maguire. Then that's 8 counties. The next 8 counties in the National League, according to their grading, will qualify for the other 8 positions at 16. And the other 16 will play in the Tailteann Cup, which, by the way, is as important in terms of the promotion and development of the game as the Sam Maguire Cup. And that's something that's going to be vital, and that has to be promoted very, very much into the future, and especially if it has been a success, because it has potential, but the promotion of it is going to make it or break it.
One of the main things that came out from that GPA press conference yesterday was the idea that Tom Parsons spoke about wanting, you mentioned at the top about, Plan A gets beaten and then the GAA are going to come out and say, well, look, now we got to get behind Plan B. But he was saying that there seems to be, and by all accounts it appears as if he's right, an absence of that level of communication from Croke Park in the way that Pádraig Duffy might have done around the Super 8s that was brought in, and I'm sure that you would have done around Rule 42. What are your thoughts on that? Would you like to see more coming centrally in relation to a drive for Plan B to be brought over the line here?
If it came to it, I would actually, because everybody says what we have isn't working as well as it should. So there's no point in sitting on the fence completely. When you're in a leadership position, you have to have views, and you're better off to express them rather than say nothing about it. Because the alternative is basically to do nothing, essentially, and that wouldn't be wise, I think. So I think you're right. If we'll say the first motion is defeated, then I think it's important that people would say, at least spell out the consequences of not voting for the second one. I think that's the very least you'd expect, so that delegates would be aware. But I mean, as I said, if you really wanted to push a motion, you would have one motion, you would have conviction behind it, you'd sell it, as you say, with Pádraig Duffy, Rule 42, etc. But times change and there are different ways to look at it, and you have to accept the democratic process as well.
Well, that's really interesting what you just said there, Sean, because that's kind of why I was asking you earlier on, why are we not hearing anything from Croke Park? That it almost seems to me as if there's a chance that, not that this is a Trojan horse or anything, but that there may be something coming down the line that they think might be better, or that this isn't the right time, or that this isn't the right format, this proposal B. There's some reservation within Croke Park. It's not some sort of philosophical, we're not wading into this. It feels like something else, Sean. And I wonder, does that tap into what you're saying there, that even the two proposals thing, it's kind of doomed to fail when you have a proposal A just hanging out there as well?
Yeah, I think that's true, because, you see, it dilutes the whole argument for change if you can't decide what change you want in advance. So you're really letting it in the lap of the gods to a certain extent. And that's what they're doing. That's what the committee came up with, different proposals. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Hopefully we do see change. And I think if they said, look, if it came to it for the second motion, if the first one was beaten, they said, listen, let's do it for 2 years even. But at least it would be something that the players feel might work, and you have to take into consideration the players. I think there are good proposals there regarding home and away. I'm a great advocate of that. I think neutral venues neutralises the effect of it. I think I remember when Longford played Dublin, I was down there in Pearse Park, I'd say about 14 or 15 years ago. The atmosphere was electric. Tyrone played Kerry a number of years ago in Killarney. There was a huge buzz in the town. So I think that home and away, that's a very important point, especially for the weaker counties. And of course also for the peripheral counties, because if venues, neutral venues are selected, they're not going to be basically along the coastline. They'll be more towards the centre. So I think that's another thing that needs to be looked at, and I think proposal B, I think, is that possibility as well.
Definitely. And like, to go back to something else that you said about the reservations surrounding proposal B, that separation of province and championship, like, I get that reservation, Sean, but like, we spoke to Niall Morgan, we just heard from him there, and as somebody who has Ulster medals, he says that's just not true. I mean, I'm going to value my province as much as ever. So I think like there's been a good effort done to dispel that element of things. And then the other thing that we're hearing, which is leading to a lot of reservation in Ulster, is the money. And we understand that this will lead to a greater windfall on a central level and on a provincial level, were this to be implemented, proposal B. Hopefully next week we actually get figures to be able to put that forward. But if you were in charge of the team running proposal B, running the campaign for this, what are you trying to push come next Monday, for example, when you have all this information? How do you change these people's minds?
Well, I think you're right. The money is going to be important, because it's not so much money, but it's what the provincial councils do with it. And they do use the money very, very well to promote the games within their counties. And there's a kind of a bond within each province, which is very important and shouldn't be diluted. And that has to continue in terms of their autonomy in making decisions for their own counties, how to develop the grounds, what games to play. And they do actually also organise a lot of competitions within the provinces, cross-county competitions and competitions for special areas and so forth. So all that has to be guaranteed to continue, because it's invaluable work. Because you just can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. What they'll be worried about, of course, is the word I use a minute ago, autonomy. They won't have the same control over their competitions as they had. And that's where the argument will have to be put, to show that they are not being downgraded, that they will have more or less the same autonomy, and as you said, maybe more money, and I think they could have, because I think there's huge potential in the Tailteann Cup if it's promoted properly, played home and away, finals in Croke Park and Ireland Day, etc. And that will generate a huge amount of income, and that's what I'm more excited about than anything else, quite frankly, because I introduced the Tommy Murphy Cup years ago. It did fail because it was only basically a tournament rather than the championship. But when it's the championship, that's a whole new ball game. But it's the same principle. You want to get every county aspiring to win All Ireland. And if you have the Tailteann Cup, I think every county could at least aspire to beating the 17th best county in the country, whereas they couldn't aspire to beating the top 3 or 4 who are there traditionally.
Yeah, I think everybody sort of works on the basis of worst case scenario, whereas that's most likely not the way it plays out. Sean, just before we let you away, if you were to be the Uachtaráin in a couple of weeks' time and stand up in front of delegates, if you had an opportunity to pitch Plan B to them, what would you be saying?
I tell them we're talking about this long enough. We have seen the way the championship has gone. We have seen unbelievable hammerings for counties. We have seen also, and this is an important point, and we don't recognise it, a lot of players in counties where they don't seem to have any prospect of real success aren't committing to Gaelic football as much as they would otherwise. And there's a huge gain there to get players to have the same pride in Gaelic football, wearing the jersey for their county, and the same opportunity, or to feel the same opportunity of success as, for instance, in Kerry. I mean, we've lost no players in Kerry, hardly, apart from 1 or 2 to the Australian rules, which is fine. But we've lost very few players to soccer or rugby or anything like that. Why? Because they can aspire to winning All Ireland, realistically. And that is going to be crucial. So you have to listen to the voice of the GPA in this one. And I think the GPA has also evolved over the years. Their consultative method is now better. They think out their responses in advance, and I think they articulate them better now. So all that has to be taken into consideration, because this is not about officials. This is about players. It's about the followers. It's about our games, which we have to grow against competition, which is fine, but we have the opportunity to grow it, and everything evolves. We can't keep doing the same thing, all over and over again, expecting things to change. So I think there's a feeling out there that we need some change. This is what we have to offer at the moment. Grasp it. And then if you're not happy in a year or two's time, we can always come back and look at it again.
That's the nub of it. All right, Sean Kelly, thanks a million.
You're most welcome, and thanks for the discussion.
Thanks a lot. Sean Kelly, former GA president there, and we felt it was important to have him on with the couple of weeks that's in it. Another important voice that's worth listening to. And we'll have lots more to come on this debate over the next little while. And by the way, there's been lots of it up to this point as well, and you can check out all the best of it in the OTB GA podcast stream. Just download the app, by the way. It's by far the easiest way to consume the best stuff. Kenny's on WhatsApp. You can definitely get the OTB Sports app and fast track your way to the best GA content, including the GPA chairman Tom Parsons and the players from that press conference yesterday. Why the Sligo chairman is backing Proposal B. Also the Ulster Secretary Brian McAvoy, who's against change. James Scahill on the next Galway manager and what's going on in the county there. Episode 22, by the way, 22 of the Football Pod with Paddy and Andy. The Conor McKenna interview is up there as well. So you can tune in for that. And Fergal Logan, who's the Tyrone co-manager, who was on with Ger and Eoin during the week with his reflections on what was an unbelievable year for them. All of that available, OTBGA podcast stream. Download the app now and turn on your push notifications. Will O'Callaghan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you getting on?
What you make of what Sean Kelly had to say?
Yeah, I mean, again, an interesting voice in the debate. A person who's been involved in huge reform within the GA, given that he spearheaded things as the president when Rule 42 went away, nearly 20 years ago now at this stage. And I think there is a groundswell of opinion, as we've been discussing in the last few days, at least among players and among managers, for Proposal B to be adopted. But when you look at the numbers that are probably going to be required to reach 60%, it's going to be a big task to try and convince enough votes over the next 2 weeks to go their way, because I would think that many of the provincial councils will vote en bloc to keep the status quo, and I wouldn't be totally surprised if there's votes from Central Council that would go towards keeping the current structure in place too. I think at this point, Proposal A looks entirely dead in the water. It's almost a little bit confusing, and it's not the fault of the Fixtures Review Committee who came together in 2019, who put 2 alternate plans together, and then the pandemic delayed things, and now here we are going to a special Congress where, in a way, there are 3 different options, and one sits there not having to get 60%, and it's a big ask to convince delegates to vote for such a large majority in the way of either Proposal A or Proposal B, but so goes the democracy of Gaelic games. And as a result, I think there's going to have to be a lot of lobbying and a lot of clever lobbying if Proposal B is to get over the line in the end. Again, I don't entirely buy Brian McAvoy's argument about the financial concerns. I think it may financially hit the provincial councils, and they're obviously going to look to ring fence their own funding along this. But you would think with the amount of games that will be played, there's a very strong chance with increased attendances in the middle of the summer that actually the gates will probably be roughly the same as they are right now. But yeah, there definitely seems to be a feeling based on, as Eoin was playing the interviews earlier on from the players, that around 80% now supported, and I think the support is quite strong, particularly among the teams who feel that they're going to be in the Tailteann Cup over the next few seasons. The only kind of sweet spot, Adrian, that kind of falls in this is I can see the top teams in the McCarthy Cup being perfectly okay with Proposal B. I can see the teams who are in, say, lower Division 3, Division 4, seeing this as a great opportunity. But some of the counties who will see themselves as maybe being middling Division 2 teams or aspirational to get out of Division 2, I wonder if they'll be convinced by the amount of places that are available in Division 2 to qualify for the All-Ireland Championship itself. That will probably be something that'll be hotly debated among the delegates at county board meetings over the next couple of weeks to decide which way they're going to vote. It's not entirely going to suit everybody, and if self-interest was to kick in you're a county who falls in that Division 2 area, you might think we'd be better with the status quo where we can definitely go for the All-Ireland, as opposed to potentially not being able to compete because we won't be in the top few spots in the second flight.
It's a good point, and I wonder if you put yourself even in the shoes of those people in the lower reaches of Division 2. I wonder, does your season just turn a little bit where you're actually eyeing up these round-robin provincial championships at the start of the year and thinking there's a real opportunity to actually take these? So, I mean, Westmeath is a perfect example now. I mean, Leinster is just a complete car crash in terms of competitiveness at the moment, so maybe it's a bad example. But there is a sort of level there where you can be targeting that at the start of the year. But on top of that, if you're not good enough for Division 2, you're going to be eyeing up winning Division 3 the following year. And if you are good enough for Division 2, you're going to be eyeing up winning Division 2 that year. So I think there is incentive. I do think that there is a reasonable goal at the end of the day. And maybe outside Leinster, then there's an actual aspiration to maybe win a province as a Division 2 underdog.
Can I just say, that's the nub of it for me, right? Like the conversation about Kerry or Tyrone or Dublin or Mayo, they are the small minority, and it's what's good for the rest, I think, and that's the main reason to bring this thing in. Like beating Laois this year for Westmeath made it a good year. Like there's nobody in that Westmeath dressing room sitting down at the start of the year going, what's our realistic ambitions this year? To win Sam Maguire, do me a favour. Like there has to be something else that's a bit more, and we've had some contacts coming in here. Declan Rahal questioning the Tailteann Cup. Proposal B does nothing for me. It makes it so Sam Maguire is the only trophy worth winning. As Enda McGinley said before, the Tailteann Cup is a loser's competition. It will get no media attention.
But can I just on that?
Yeah.
The Tailteann Cup we cannot use as a stick to beat Proposal B with. We have to remember that this is entirely separate from Proposal B. The Tailteann Cup is here. The Tailteann Cup is happening in the status quo. I'm not mistaken on that, Will, am I? This is that was due to come in last year.
It was only COVID that actually delayed it from happening. That was a reality. It would have taken place the last 2 years if it hadn't been for the pandemic.
And can I just say, at the press conference yesterday, Tom Parsons was challenged on how they are going to promote the Tailteann Cup, which is a nonsense argument about this Proposal B. It is a different thing. Yes, we should be having a debate about the Tailteann Cup, but you cannot vote against Proposal B on the back of the Tailteann Cup. The Tailteann Cup is going to be here in the status quo, and I feel that those wires have got crossed over the last couple of days. I feel that a lot of wires have got crossed over the last couple of weeks, and there is a lot of misplaced criticism of Proposal B. The criticism, when it's fair, is all great, and we should be having these arguments, but there are a couple of different... I think maybe a bit of miscommunication that's happened over the last few months where people are still confused about what Proposal B brings and what people are actually voting for. And one of those things is the Tailteann Cup, that people have married that to Proposal B, which is just false. It is not exclusively part of Proposal B.
Yeah, and look, I've been critical in the past of the Gaelic Players Association and some of the things they get involved in, but I have to give them credit for the explainer video which they brought out on Proposal A and B yesterday, which you can get in the GPA Twitter account if you want to watch it, because I appreciate when we do bulletins and we have chats on programmes, it is quite difficult to actually distill down Proposal A and Proposal B and make it very simple and consumable if somebody is wondering what the actual structures mean. I think you have to sit down, either watch a video like that or have a read probably before you make any kind of decision on whether you're pro Proposal A, Proposal B, or wanting to stick with the status quo. And like crucially when it comes to the status quo, as you mentioned, Eoin, about the Tailteann Cup and whatever's going to happen about the Super 8s, is that the championship is up for reform next year anyway. So it kind of feels to an extent that if they stick with the status quo and neither Proposal A or B gets 60% at the upcoming Special Congress, there is still going to be a massive debate about the structures going into next year when reform of the championship for another 3-year period was due to take place anyway. So these conversations might not necessarily result in the adoption of either proposal, but they could very well inform the discussions around what happens with the championship next year.
And I wonder, Will, is that why we're not hearing anything from Croke Park? I wonder, are they just sitting on their hands for another 12 months, seeing how this debate plays out, how the vote plays out, and then when it's up for debate next year, after seeing out the third year of the Super 8s, for example, will they then take a stand, I wonder?
Yeah, well, they'll probably argue that, look, they put a review committee and a task force in place to come up with suggestions back in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
They have done so. They're going to put these before delegates and they will say, look, we have to stay entirely apolitical between now and then, despite the fact that, you know, the Central Council and the provincial councils and centre delegates are all going to vote on these proposals. So it's not like they're entirely neutral on it. But I would imagine that they'll probably sit back, they'll probably take stock of where this goes and which of the two proposals receives the most support, and that may very well inform where they go from there. I just kind of felt from the outset, lads, that Proposal A was always intended to try and maybe keep as many people on board as they possibly could. So it kept a strong argument that the provincial councils were still getting their provincial competitions at a meaningful time of the year. They were just trying to move it enough to make it a change, but not radically change. While Proposal B, which is not all that radical, to go to effectively a round robin for the championship, but just do it on the basis of where the National Football League positions are, seems very radical at the moment, but it's actually probably not that big a change. The GA tends to move in very small increments when it does move forward.
Yeah, that's for sure. In a minute, Will, what are the cliff notes of this morning's sports news?
Yeah, we have the PwC Football All-Star list and the Player of the Year candidates. 2 players from Tyrone, Conor Myler and Kieran McGeary. No great surprise there. Mayo's Lee Keegan also in the running to be named Footballer of the Year. Keegan will be hoping to win the prize for a second time, having previously picked it up in 2016. The All-Ireland champions Tyrone dominate the All-Star nominations. Like Limerick yesterday, they've got 15 of the 45. You can read the full list on otbsports.com. Young Footballer of the Year candidates: Galway's Matthew Tierney, Tyrone's Darragh Hanavan and Mayo's Oisin Mullen, who's hoping to win for a second year in a row. Newcastle's new owners have said overnight that they plan to become Premier League champions in the next 5 to 10 years. A Saudi-led consortium completed their £300 million takeover of the club. Director Amanda Staveley says they've yet to make any decision on the future of Steve Bruce. The new owners will conduct a full review before making their next steps. Amnesty International say it's worrying that clubs are being used to sports wash human rights abuse, referencing Saudi Arabia's record on the issue. The son of former Celtic and Albania star Rudy Vata was key to the Republic of Ireland's under-17s completing their fine start to European qualifying last night. Rocco Vata scored 1 and provided 2 in a 5-0 demolition of Andorra at Turner's Cross. Notable, the Colin O'Brien side had no players from English clubs involved. The 21s are in action tonight in their qualifying campaign. They go up against Luxembourg at Tallaght Stadium, 5:15. One game at the top of the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. Well, the focus there really, Shamrock Rovers potentially going 12 points clear at the top. Dundalk, who are fighting relegation, in a bit of decent form at the moment, going into that game at 7:45. And in rugby, Rob Herring, it's a landmark night for him, Adrian. 200 appearance for Ulster tonight, including the front row for the United Rugby Championship clash with Benetton. That game gets underway at Kingspan Stadium at 7:35.
Good man, Will. Thanks a million. Will O'Callaghan on the line there with the latest from the world of sport and his take on Plan A versus Plan B versus status quo. And everybody's sort of in contact this morning wondering what Kenny's taking it is, and we'll bring you that in a few minutes' time. He's been sitting there stewing over which option he wants to go with. But before all of that, Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Something about the sight of a Munster back row from Tipperary in a Leinster jersey that gets the juices flowing.
Yeah, well, we had there was a lot of chat this week on our WhatsApp group about Liam's signing and joining the Leinster senior group. It's a strange one, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, it is. I suppose it is a little bit, but it's not. It's just the way the game has gone. Obviously, over the years, lots of Leinster fellas have come and signed for Munster from a player's point of view. Few have gone the other way. not too many. John Fogarty, Stephen Keogh, Trevor Hogan, all Tipperary men. I heard you the other day talking about Tipperary, making Tipperary Leinster.
That was Ger.
Yeah.
That was Ger. Sorry, it was Ger.
It was Gracell, Alan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Swapping awfully.
God,
I mean, maybe that bit is fair enough. What was the
Yeah,
what was
Jesus.
the WhatsApp group saying, Quinny? Was it? Yeah, give us as much as you can.
what was it saying?
I think people would read between the lines there. But was it?
It was congratulating Dennis personally.
No,
it was
wasn't.
all personal.
It was saying, what is this guy doing? Look at this. What is happening in this blue jersey?
Look, I think if you look at all the ex-Munster guys who are coaching in different clubs around Europe, deep down in an ideal scenario, and it's the same as any Leinster guys if they play for such a long time, deep down you'd love to be, in a sense, be back at your own team and involved there and back in your own surroundings. But that's professional sport, and the opportunities sometimes aren't there. A lot of the times they're not there. People have to go away. For Dennis, I think the opportunity presented himself a couple of years ago to get involved as an elite development officer with Leinster, which very shrewd move from them, because I just think good, obviously players with big careers and good careers don't automatically make great coaches, but there's a certain level of knowledge and experience that there has to be a benefit for having them involved, particularly with youngsters first of all. There's obviously less pressure and you're not judged as harshly. You've still got to make improvements, and Leinster's underage system and development is very strong, so I'm sure they scrutinise that, and Dennis would have impressed there and done really well. But it's just the way professional sport has gone. So he got the opportunity, and why wouldn't he? If any of us think about it, you can't go, well, I'm a Munster man and I'm not going to be involved with my biggest rivals. If you've 5 offers on the table from 5 professional teams, then maybe the WhatsApp group would have an argument and say, Liams, why didn't you take the Connacht job, the Ulster job, the Harlequins job, or the Leicester job, or a job in France? But
because Leinster are better than any of those teams as well, Quinny, is the thing.
No, it's not necessarily that they're better. It's it's that he's been working with them, and he can still live at home. He commutes up and down, stays a couple of nights in Dublin.
But come here, listen, all of this, right, the elephant in the room is suggesting that on some level Dennis Leamy doesn't want to be there.
No, not at all. I think it's not suggesting that. I'm saying that if I was in that situation, you've got to look after yourself. And this is an incredible opportunity to work with one of the top, potentially the top team in Europe, who are the most consistent over the last kind of 6-7 years, from a European point of view. Conveyor belt of players coming through. And, we've had lots of coaches come from abroad to Munster when I was there. And, Jim Williams, Tony McGahan, Alan Gaffney, I know he was with Leinster beforehand. And they all went back and they coached Australia. So you can't look at it and say, well, they're my rivals. We'll have a bit of slagging about it. But genuinely, I just think Liams is an incredible fella. He was an incredible player. He was a great leader. He wasn't the most vocal of guys, but he had incredible respect amongst the group, and he just goes about his business. And I'm sure he's doing the same as a coach. He's had to, cut his teeth coaching Cashel and Rockwell and Clonmel.
It's an incredible CV. It's like the CV, Quinny, of somebody who didn't have half the profile of playing career.
Well, you see, the profile sometimes helps. You look at, I always compare, and I always say this to about Mike Prendergast. Mike didn't have the same CV as Rog, but Mike ended up in Grenoble and Oyonnax, Stade Francais, Racing, gets the dream job, kind of, real bit of structure and security with Racing, with a 4-year contract there 2 years ago, and they're knocking on the door, French top 14 and Europe as well. So some guys, the CV as a player doesn't. It's a little bit unfair sometimes. Liams went the other way. He was respectfully to junior rugby and schools rugby. He was right down at the bottom, learning and doing that. And then obviously when he went into the Leinster system, he obviously impressed, and it's a wonderful opportunity for him. Let's be fair about it, and it couldn't happen to a better fella. I think he's incredible respect amongst all of us that he played with. He was always someone you looked across at and knew that the work was done. He was going to give 100% in everything he did. And he just turned up week after week and was just a real kind of vibrant and energetic person, not vocally, but he's just an incredible guy, and he's Leinster. He'd be a massive boost to them. Of course, it's a different challenge when you step up, and it's the same for any of the ex-Munster players. Fla went to Harlequins last year, did remarkably well after a tough time in Munster. Felix went and being involved in a World Cup win with South Africa after a tough time with Munster. So it doesn't automatically go to plan. Rog is probably the only one who's this incredible upward trajectory, which is, it's going to be different for him this year being a head coach. But coaching is tough, and Dennis will be under a lot of pressure there, and he'll have to deliver. But obviously, just like I said, it doesn't guarantee you're being a successful coach to player. But I'd be amazed if Dennis Leamy didn't make an impact and inspire guys around him. He has an incredible presence about him for someone who's not the most vocal, and they'll respect him because he's been there and done that at the top level.
It's great to see some love between Leinster and Munster, and that was one of the themes of the week. Gordon Darcy in the Irish Times this week, and indeed on Off the Ball, actually on Monday Night Rugby, has been one of the more glowing voices on Munster as a result of their performances so far in the URC. He said that Gavin Coombs can represent a new Munster that can end barren run, that he thinks the time is now for this Munster team to win silverware, and that it might well happen this season. Is that the mood generally when you've been talking to people this week, Alan, that things have got off to a really good start for Munster, and that this is the year for them to finally end that barren run?
I don't know. It's I think if they get everyone fit and playing well, they have potential for sure. But and they'd be a handful for anybody if they have all those players fit and available to them. But getting off the ground running, it's very early days. It's very early days in this championship. They played two South African teams who have their own challenges, being on the road, new competition, all that kind of stuff. We've seen moments, really good moments. The last try Zebo scored against the Sharks was incredible. And I heard Graham Rowntree speaking about it during the week. And you have to, it's when you hear a coach talking like that, because that last try was superb. Would they have scored it before? Who knows? But I think the ambition to keep the ball alive there, and the last try from Zebo was superb. They certainly hadn't their best 40 minutes against the Stormers in the first half last week. I had no issue with them putting the ball up the jumper and getting the job done in the second half last week. You've got to figure out how to win a game when you're on the back foot, when things are going wrong like that. So there's always expectation and there's always pressure, and I think it's probably heightened more so this year because there's been the last number of years, there's been disappointments when they've got to the knockout stage. But look, it'd be great if they could. And if they get, if I was to name a team now, their best team, I think you'd go, that's a pretty strong side. Will there be weaknesses and deficiencies in one or two areas? Of course there will. I think the front row is an area where Leinster have a lot of depth, and compared to Munster, and maybe we keep comparing them because they're the biggest rivals, but there's a couple of areas that if they get injuries, it could be issues for them. But of course they have the potential to do that, and but it's a different kind of challenge this week. Now they go away to the Scarlets. That'll be interesting to see how they cope with that, and if they can get a result there.
Since you were on with us on Monday, the Jake White comments around Connacht, Andy Friend has had a say in it. He said they were ill-informed, frustrating, and that Connacht was a lot more than a bunch of Leinster players trying to get contracts, which of course it is, a lot more than that. And like the job that he's done and that Pat Lam has done and everything that Connacht stands for. But having said all of that, was there not just an element of Jake White picking at the scab of the thing that we all know is like the problem child in the parlance of another sport of Irish rugby anyway, and that he was kind of just pointing out the bleeding obvious that maybe we should put back on the menu on the agenda a little bit more?
Yeah, look, you can take it as being disrespectful. Is there some truth in it? Of course there is. Should he have said it? Well, it was quite stupid thing to say, given he was just about to go out and play this side, and he gave them a bit of an edge and a bit of a chip on their shoulder to kind of prove them wrong. But Connacht have, and I think Andy Friend has done a great job there. They're always going to be up against it with depth, quality, and having to mix and match and maybe go into the market and sign players that maybe don't cost as much as South African World Cup winners and stuff like that, finance themselves a little bit differently.
Is there ever a chance, to take that point to the end, Quinny, like the stadium gets redeveloped and whatever, is there ever a chance that they're competing at the level of Munster and Leinster and Ulster?
I think there is, and they have to believe there is. Obviously, the success of Munster and Leinster in Europe, you get judged on that. The Pro 14 win in 2016 was an incredibly important win for Connacht to kind of change the perception a bit. I think they've got to have a run in Europe. They've got to be getting to quarterfinals, semi-finals, and it's difficult sometimes when you have players who are not making it in Leinster. You have players who weren't making it in Munster. He's got to do his business a little bit differently, Andy Friend. And will a World Cup player? It's, of course it will. If they get the stadium done, I think increase the capacity, fill the place out every week. They make a stronger argument for sure. But I think they've made massive progress. Genuinely, when I played against Connacht back in the day, back in the 2000s, and it was always a really difficult place to go. But, were they just... It kind of remind me back when I started playing with Munster, when you played a big English team in Thomond Park in a European game, we probably didn't believe that we were going to win we didn't believe we were going to win a European Cup, but we were incredibly difficult to beat at home. And to become successful, you've got to get results. That helps it. And sometimes, squad depth and actually top-class international quality makes a huge difference to that. So they're developing a lot of good players, but they've got to hold on to them and really build on that in the next couple of years and get a real good run in Europe.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you about before we let you off, you've been sitting down with Stuart Lancaster for a documentary on Virgin Media upcoming. Give us the plug.
Yeah, it's on Sunday night in Virgin Media. The last 6-7 months, I've gone out chatting to different people about mental health and the importance of mental health. And I spoke to Conor Whelan, and not just in sport. I think in real life as well. I spoke to people who have no involvement in sport who have been affected by suicide in their families. I spoke to Mark Smith, the clinical psychologist who works with Rugby Players Ireland, just about the uptake of rugby players using the services and availing of services there around their mental health and pressures and stresses that they have. And I had a great chat with Stuart Lancaster, he's just intriguing to chat to about what happened to him in 2015 and after the World Cup with England, and how that affected him and how he kind of rebuilt himself to come back, and just his take on mental health, because I know there's obviously a perception sometimes from people who are not affected by mental health that mental health is for people who are down their luck and that have issues in adversity. But there's lots of people who are in successful positions and places in sport in particular who are struggling to deal with the pressures and has a real negative effect in their life. We've seen that over the years with high-profile suicides in sport. But it's a societal thing, Adrian, I think. And, given with what happened with COVID and everything, there's some real-life, hard-hitting stories in the documentary. And my only goal in doing it was not for financial gain or any sort of glory, because there's none of that involved for me. Was to talk to people who've been really deeply affected and what we can do as a society, and what sports people can do to kind of inspire people in their communities and speak up if they are struggling a little bit. So I'm very nervous about it because, I've done lots of interviews over the years, sporting interviews. This is a totally different new ball game. And, I sit down with a family in Carrick-on-Shore whose son at 16 committed suicide in 2012. He was a big Munster rugby fan, and Thomas Kennedy was his name. And the family asked for me to go and speak to them at the time, which was incredibly strange and difficult thing for me to do because, I'm not qualified to talk to someone about that stuff. So I sat in the kitchen a month after their son committed suicide and just kind of listened and sympathized with them. And I wanted to go back and see what their lives were like now. So I went back 9 years later and was sitting in the same kitchen talking to David and Helen Kennedy in Carrick-on-Shore about their son and the effects of it and what they think as a society we can do to stop this.
Yeah. Well, look, you've been a powerful voice on it over the last few years. I'm really looking forward to it. Virgin Media on Sunday night, I think you said, was it?
Yeah, it's Sunday night at 9 o'clock.
Sunday night, 9 o'clock. Make an appointment to watch that. I'm fascinated to know what's in that WhatsApp group, so I'll be giving you a shout afterwards, and we'll pick that conversation.
I'll send you some screenshots.
Do lash them on. Good man. Thanks, Quinny.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Now, we could talk about the papers, but let's talk a little about Irish football instead. Kenny, Azerbaijan tomorrow night. Are we going to get the win?
I don't know.
That's not what we're paying you the big bucks for, Kenny. Get off the fence. We are going to beat them.
Will you pay me car park fee at least around the corner? You do that? That's good. Obviously, live in hope. I would be reasonably confident. I'll be honest. I always wait to see the team. I'm always a bit more confident when I see the team in there before kick-off, and you get a bit of a picture in terms of how the team's going to set up, and obviously, partnerships around the pitch that can give you a little bit more confidence. And I must admit, the last kind of couple of games, kind of last month, the last 3 games, probably for the first time, you're beginning to see the bones of a team kind of come together. I'm not talking about necessarily kind of the form of the team, but just in terms of the structure of the team and personnel in particular areas of the pitch, because it wasn't too long ago, maybe 6 months ago, you could have asked me, name 3, 4 Ireland players, absolute certainties to start in the starting 11, and I was struggling. I was actually struggling probably to name 3 or 4 players. But last month, albeit we had the disappointment of losing in the manner which we did against Portugal. Of course, it was a draw against Azerbaijan in the Serbia game. Just looking at the team, you're just seeing the sense of the spine of a team coming together. The president, the goalkeeper, obviously Gavin Bazzuno, but I think the whole goalkeeping setup there, it's a ray of sunshine at the moment, isn't it? Our goalkeepers, it really is. I mean, just when you're beating yourself up a little bit, maybe in terms of results, maybe performances. You look at those 3 kids coming onto the pitch, and I put Mark Travers in that category as well. I don't think there's been enough talk about Mark over the past couple of months. A lot of talk between about Gavin Bazzuno and Quinlan for obvious reasons, like 2 outstanding goalkeepers. But I think Mark, for me, deserves a huge amount of credit. He came into the team against Serbia that time, some time ago. Had a bit of a difficult night in Serbia. Came out of the team after that. A little bit of criticism, maybe unfairly so. But he's kind of got his head down. He's worked hard. He's played pretty much every game for Bournemouth this season. He's in great form. So for me, that trio of goalkeepers we have there now, it's as good as I think it's as good as anything. I don't know if 3 better.
We don't have a huge amount of time before the big dog joins us and we get stuck into a live crappy quiz. So I want to ask you about something Dan McDonnell is writing about in the Irish Independent this morning. Aaron Connolly, and a player with so much promise, obviously, and flashes of it we've seen, but just sort of not that consistency. But Dan writes, sources have indicated that the jury's out on Connolly with sections of the dressing room, and a general view that he could do better, and maybe a view that, and Dan mentions it in the piece this morning, that his attitude isn't what it needs to be, which is in some ways kind of surprising to read that about a player at that level. What's your sense of what lies ahead now for Aaron Connolly? Because Stephen Kenny's put a lot of faith in him. Yeah, well, I couldn't speak about the individual to a great extent. I wouldn't know him that well. All I can talk about is where
his footballing qualities, what I've seen. So there's clear talent there. You can see that. You see the qualities which he has, kind of dynamic way in which he moves around the pitch. He wants to travel with the ball. He wants to be positive. I think his game understanding has to improve. I think he's almost got to find his position. He's still at that stage where he's trying to find his position. Is it playing wide of a 3? Can he play in a 2? Can he play as a lone kind of central striker? So I think he has to find that out himself, and hopefully that'll come with experience. I think when he came when he played it with Adam Eden, Troy Pattard there not too long ago, you could tell there was a bit of a lack of understanding there between the 3 inexperienced players in terms of how they play together and the kind of understanding between them and their respective positions. So I'm excited about Aaron's presence in the team, but at the moment I'm not exactly sure where he fits in, to be honest with you. So hopefully that'll come over time. But like I said before, I think there's a basic structure. It looks as if we settle on that back 5, back 3, which is a good thing. Shane, John Egan will dominate that. Unfortunately, we've lost Dara, but Andrew Omo Bamidiele done fantastically well the last couple of games. I think he has to start. So I'll be very confident in that kind of defensive structure with the 3. Unfortunately, Seamus won't be there. And then in midfield for me, which has been the biggest area, Josh Cullen of late for me has done really, really impressed last month in difficult circumstances. And Jason Knight, I'd have to mention as well. I think he's been a big miss. I mean, in such a short period of time, I wouldn't go as far as to say he's become an integral part of the team, but the qualities which he has for me is something we're going to have to utilise in the immediate future. I mean, strong argument for me for him coming straight into the team in that kind of central midfield area, particularly if we play with a narrow midfield through a 3 and maybe a front 2 up front. I think he's so versatile. You can see him playing at centre midfield in a 3, even wide of a front 3. He's played at Derby before. He's hugely versatile. And what really struck me was actually the summer when he played against Andorra. He came into the team. He actually played right of a 4 that day. Stephen played 4-4-2 against Andorra. Troy got his first international goal, and he played in an area of Troy where I think he's more comfortable as a central striker. I think Troy looks a little bit uncomfortable operating off the sides. To me, he looks like a central striker, likes to operate in a pair. I think potentially him and Adam Ida down the road, that could be a pairing which could come together. But Jason that day put some crosses into the box. He put a cross in for Daryl Horgan, headed goal at the back post. He put a ball in first half. He whipped the ball in, and it was like watching a young David Beckham. The quality was that good. I remember looking at him thinking, wow, this kid's got a little bit of very central midfield wide. He can deliver into box. He can get box to box. Technically good. So I'm seeing now players now. Josh Cullen, Jason, that central midfield there. Spoke about at the back. A real kind of structure, maybe coming together up front. He's got to find maybe a partnership and a trio of players up front who can kind of function together. But it's coming a little bit slower than we would have hoped. But I'm hopeful.
Good man, optimistic. Few goals wouldn't go astray. Right, here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day. OTB Gold from 1 o'clock. Gerald Nan in conversation with Joe. Friday Night Racing at 3. State of the Union at 4 with Keith Wood there, and then Declan Murphy is the source of OTB Gold from 6, off the ball on your radio from 7 this evening as well. And we're going to hear from the GPA CEO Tom Parsons before 10 this morning about why they're so strongly in favour of Proposal B at the Special Congress vote on October 23rd. Up next this morning though, right here on OTB AM, you will not want to miss it. It's a very, very special return, and it's a live return for the Crappy Quiz.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
You know how you know you care? You know you care by what's the proof in the pudding. And like, we keep seeing it over and over again every year that there's evidence of when you see tents like that set up for an Interpro game, you know they don't care. They're just giving, look, it's the communications department of the RFU are very good. They're good people in there, they're good at their jobs. But it's not their job to fix women's rugby. It's their job to dampen out the fire when it comes. Like, I guarantee you we'll be having this conversation in 12 months.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for Quick Start Insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right? I know, it's not right. else? Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell?
Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against one another in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today revealed last week that he leaves his phone on loud, which prompts questions about his private life. Does he wear runners that light up when he walks? Does he wear a GEA jersey at non-GEA events? Everything is on the table now that we know his dark secret. Give it up for Adrian. Who's your daddy, Barry?
I don't understand the idea of outside of meetings, like if you're doing stuff like this, why would you... What was that? Is that your phone? Whose phone was that?
Who's on loud? Whose phone's on loud?
That's Nathan Murphy, no question about it. His phone is vibrating there.
No, it's vibrating, which is the appropriate thing to do, Adrian.
It's ridiculous, Kelly. Would you not, like, have you ever heard of this? People with their phones on silent, they'd never have a ringtone on.
Permanently.
I never, ever have.
Kenny, how would you know you were getting a WhatsApp message if you didn't have the volume on?
Because you have it on vibrate, like any normal human being.
The phone lights up.
Kenny, come on. What are you?
I
silent.
don't really want to jump.
Come on, silent. Really volume or silent?
Get lost very quickly.
Volume or silent?
When you
walk out here.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have I don't like that in the enclosed space. Obviously, the phone goes off. I think it's a little bit disrespectful.
Well, he
to
never
other
has
people.
the volume on.
If that's the reason why Nathan does it, just
respect for other people.
I think there is a little bit of that. I think it's not all about yourself. It's not all about me and my phone.
Oh, but Adrian Barry is always about himself.
Everybody else like in the room. So
without question, top of the list. After Joe Malloy cooking fish in the microwave that time, the second most annoying thing anyone in Off the Ball has ever done is Adrian Barry walk around the office all day with the phone pinging, delighted with himself.
Sorry, I'm popular. That's
what
can I say?
I can still smell the fish. Our next contestant today is ready for another bumper international break. After staying in Sweden before the away leg of the playoff against Denmark in 2019, he has stayed true to form and is limbering up for his commentary in Baku by commuting from Istanbul. Maybe that's really close and this intro isn't even funny, but who even knows? Give it up for the beast of Ballyhonest, Nate Dog Murphy.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honour to be here. Kenny looks as excited as ever.
He does indeed, which brings us on to our last contestant today, who is Dublin's very own combination of Mary Berry and Marco Pierre White. Whether he's tantalising himself with a cream donut in Thunder's Bakery or unfurling a tender battered sausage in the airport chipper on the Swords Road, this man is Ireland's chief purveyor of fine dining, whether it is sweet or savoury. Give it up for football's finest foodie, Kenny Cunningham.
Thunders is in the bad books a little bit at the moment, I've got to be honest.
Oh, what happened?
Ooh. Let's be careful here now, Kenny.
No, it's got to be said. No, it's got to be said.
Let's be very careful.
I was queuing there a couple of months ago in Northside for a few little selection of goodies on the front, and I spotted some of the fresh bread in behind, all stacked. This was early in the morning. Thought to myself, why not? Why wouldn't you? So I indicated to the girl I take one of the batch options there and the top. She had a quick discussion with our colleagues, came back to me to inform me that none of the breads on display would be available for purchase as they'd been pre-booked.
Well, I'm glad we went down that road. I wasn't sure where we were headed there. That's a good outcome. That's fair enough, Kenny. That's the times we live in.
You got to get
pre-booked. That is a disgrace.
You're a victim of your own success.
Thank you, Owen. Thank you.
Somebody got in ahead of you and got you failed to prepare, Kenny.
What's happened? What does a guy got to do to get some
lazy bugger got out of their phone, didn't even get out of their bed in the morning, picked up their phone, made a phone call to Thunders to reserve a couple of items, and there's me and the other customers in the queue, patiently waiting to be served.
That should be the opposite of being in the bad books. That's really to recommend them. The bread is obviously delicious.
Bringing your custom to the shop physically, Kenny, I appreciate
wrong, though, isn't it? That's
what was it
wrong,
like?
Isn't it?
What did you say it was? A batch loaf?
Batch loaf, yeah.
Nice.
Okay, as ever, the format. is the classic crappy quiz. We've got 10 minutes to get through this quiz. It's the classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on a range of themes. Then it's on to the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on otbsports.com or on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give us the thumbs up, even if we contribute nothing but misery to your day. You can send any questions you have via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round 1 is the boring questions round. It is never multiple choice. Adrian, Brian Fenton last year became the first footballer since which 90s superstar to win 2 Footballer of the Year awards?
Oh. Which 90s superstar? 90s.
It's not a dub, is it?
Is it Maurice Fitz?
No helping. Seamus Moynihan?
No, it's not. It's Trevor Giles.
I was going to go for a Meath player, actually, but it wouldn't have been him.
Yeah, Giles.
Tough.
I might have gone for Garrity.
6 in 99, I think.
Don't beat yourself up, Adrian. That strikes me as a very tough opening question.
Yeah.
Nathan, can you name
Adrian.
the last Ryder Cup captain not called Steve Stricker to lead a team to a haul of over 18 points?
Well, this is in his wheelhouse, let's face it. Specialist topic, Kenny.
It's the 50s, isn't it? It's got to be 50s, 60s, isn't it?
I'm going to say Ian Woosnam.
Correct. He knows his onions. Kenny.
Okay, club.
Can you name the last team the Republic of Ireland have beaten in a competitive fixture?
Oh.
That was the 60s, wasn't it?
A competitive fixture as well. What you term a competitive fixture? Andorra for me. Andorra was a very competitive fixture in the summer, so I'm going to say Andorra because in my mind,
a non-friendly.
That was a very now you're changing the rules. Now you're changing the rules.
Where points were awarded.
You know what I mean, Nathan?
Where points were awarded is a good way of putting it.
Last competitive. Jeez, that is some time ago. It's got to be under Martin, wouldn't it? Wouldn't have been that Wales game, would it? Away, James McLean, that wouldn't go.
No, Gibraltar. We beat them at home 2-0 under Mick McCarthy. Do you remember that?
Jeez, I was there. I was at it.
Another specialist
Own
topic.
goal, Robbie Brady last minute.
Golf
Tripolina.
and Ireland international football specialist topics. Just saying.
Well, I think round 2 taps into all of your specialist topics. Round 2 is the FIFA ratings round. In this round, we will test your knowledge on the subject of FIFA player ratings down through the years to see how much of a real football man you are. Adrian, in FIFA 2008, which of these footballers had the highest overall rating? A. Lionel Messi, B. Thierry Henry, or C. Adriano?
It's just so crazy. There's only one reason. Surely you're asking me that question. So, Adriano.
No, you don't know your PES from your FIFA. Adriano was the king in Pro Evolution Soccer, not in FIFA. The answer is Thierry Henry. He had a rating of 90. Messi and Adriano were both in 86.
You fell for double bluff, Adrian.
That is the bottom.
Questions in the crappy quiz.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Nathan, in FIFA 2005, which of these footballers had the highest overall rating? A. Roy Keane, B. Damien Duff, or C. Robbie Keane?
05, Duffer's at Chelsea.
Oh, here we go. Cycle of.
I know. My in-depth footballing knowledge tells me that Damien Duff was at Chelsea in 2005. Who else knows?
You get anything but the answer, Kenny. That's what happens.
I back him. I back Nathan, to be honest. It's just pot luck. It's not based on any. It's just
a bit.
How dare you?
Lazy.
That's where Nathan.
Very lazy question.
It's definitely not Roy Keane. I'm going to say it is Duffer.
Why would you say it's definitely not Roy Keane? It is Roy Keane. In FIFA 2005, Roy Keane had a rating of 91. Damien Duff was 86 and Robbie Keane was 83. I was surprised at myself. I don't think he was even in FIFA 2006. But yeah, 91 was what he bowed out with. Kenny, question 2 for you. In FIFA 2006, which of these footballers had the highest...
Never played a video game in my life.
Which of these footballers had the highest overall rating? A. Stephen Hunt, B. Gary Kelly, or C. Kenny Cunningham?
What year was that?
2006.
I made it in there.
Yeah, you're in there.
Do you not need permission? Do you not need to give permission
I
for
think
people
FIFA Pro,
to...
I think, signed away.
You didn't get royalties for that.
Yeah. Your likeness was spot on.
I don't
as
remember
well.
signing any paperwork to that effect. That
Did you see how you looked in the video game?
Can we get a visual of that?
I mean, it's
pretty sorry looking character on that FIFA game. How many penalties did I give away that season on FIFA? Oh, obviously. Well, Hunty was on 4 there for a bit, wasn't he? God bless him. Gaz was just so consistent. What do you get marked for anyway? What do you actually
Everything,
get?
all right.
overall. So your
Ability.
overall rating.
It's a true reflection on your footballing ability, Kenny.
It's the only thing that matters. Your metric. Hunt, Kelly,
Right, so it's
Cunningham.
a 50-50. So it's clearly a 50.
Question is,
I'll go with it. I'm going to go with do you know what? I'm going to go with Hunty.
Believe in yourself, Kenny. It's Kenny Cunningham with a rating of 74.
There you go.
Hunt was only
Come on,
59, and Gary Kelly was 68.
I have to
Good
say,
man,
it's
Kenny.
ridiculous.
74.
Ridiculous.
Well done, Kenny.
That's right.
Yeah, so you were just 12 points behind Messi in the FIFA ratings.
You can't
report.
get marked positive for back passes to a goalkeeper during
12 points
during
behind Messi.
Yeah,
record
strange
number of
as it
back passes during the game.
So the only person who scored a point so far is Nathan. As we move on to round 3, which is the Pass the Parcel of Doom round. Yes, it is time for a very special brand new round in the Crappy Quiz. In this round, I will give you a category that involves a list of names. All you've got to do is give me a name that matches the list, and the Parcel of Doom passes on to the next contestant, who then has to give me a name. We will keep moving through the list until you give me an incorrect answer, and then you will score -1 point. So
I don't fully follow this.
Fair
but
play,
let's-
John. If actually given this
Nobody
a little
does.
bit of thought, he's actually put a bit of
Yeah,
thought
as in,
into
I'd
it.
still
Give him a
don't
bit of
understand.
credit, Adrian.
Do you
Give him a
get-
bit
do you
of credit.
understand
So it's
No, no idea. But I'm just rolling with it.
Have you ran this past anybody yet? Because generally when you come up with bright ideas like this, they don't stack up when it comes to the execution.
you see, we haven't done a quiz for like a month, so I've kind of had a short-term memory
He's been on
loss. how all
holidays.
these
This is what he
things-
does when he's lying on the beach down in Farm 4.
I've completely forgotten about how all these things die on
When
the
he
vine.
was on the bus to Beauvais,
So
he came up with this genius
First one or
idea.
second one?
a light bulb moment. So buckle up, folks. This is going to be a great round. So we've got 3 lists. Adrian, you get to go first with the first one here. So, can you give me the name of a manager of Watford FC since the beginning of 2010, including caretakers? So the list includes caretakers since the start of 2010.
Oh, what was your man's name that Keith Andrews fell out with?
We're going to need to be like semi-rapid here as well.
Okay,
if
I'm going to
possible.
go with Tony Mowbray.
Straight away, this game is already dead. You ruined everything, Adrian. No, Tony Mowbray was
Thank
not.
God you ruined it, because I was about to ruin it. Right after you.
Do you know what?
Nathan's God.
We're gonna. We've lost. What we're going to do is we're going to deduct you 1 point, but we're going to keep going.
Oh, God,
and then
no.
Game makes no sense.
We'll deduct 2 people a point.
So is it a new question?
No, it's the same thing. Let's go through this list, Nathan.
This makes no sense.
Javi Gracia.
Javi Gracia, that's 1.
Sorry,
Kenny.
what did he say?
Javi Gracia.
I think he said Javi Garcia.
Kenny.
I didn't.
Kiki Flores.
Kike Sanchez Flores, yes.
Oh, that's what I was going to go for. Marco Silva.
Marco Silva, correct. Kenny.
Graham Taylor.
And he's going to cough. Get the exterminators in.
Graham Taylor would be just prior to 2010. I think there was a couple of English managers there, wasn't there? British based during that time. Am I right, Owen? I'm not failing you out here for answers, right? There are a couple of British based answers.
At any point since the start of 2010, there's a lot of different people.
Didn't the fella come back and manage them twice? Kiki Flores.
No, we're gonna
They
need to
jumped back,
push you.
didn't they?
Gonna need to push you for a different name there, Kenny.
It was his brother. No, I'm struggling.
You're
out,
packing
I'm
it in.
out.
All right, you get deducted a point as well. Nathan, you stay on 1 point, so you survive there. The full list: Sean Deitch, manager.
That's right. That's the one I was.
Vladimir Ivic, Slavica Jokanovic, Oscar Garcia Junient, Malky Mackay, Walter Mazzari, Billy McKinley, Hayden Mullins, Chisco Munoz obviously just lost his job, Nigel Pearson, Claudio Ranieri has just been appointed into the job, Giuseppe Sanino and Gianfranco Zola on top of the names that you've already mentioned. So the next list, Nathan, you get to go first. Irish,
oh wait, there is another one.
there is, yeah. Irish goal scorers in competitive games since Robbie Keane's retirement. Non-friendlies.
Robbie Brady.
That's 1. Next up is Kenny.
Shane Duffy.
That's another 1. Adrian.
Dave McGoldrick.
That's another 1. Nathan.
Seamus Coleman.
That's another 1.
James McLean.
James McLean. Adrian.
Troy Parrott.
No. I was against Andorra in a friendly. Okay, next up is...
So-called friend. Oh, they're giving it a competitive game.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a competitive game for me,
So-called.
Adrian.
Kenny says it's a point.
Kenny.
Conor Harahan.
Boom. Nathan.
Daryl Murphy.
Daryl Murphy, it's a good one. Kenny.
Daryl Murphy.
Daryl Murphy, yeah.
Since Robbie
2
retired.
against Moldova.
Moldova. Scored twice.
James Collins.
James Collins, it's a good one.
Woohoo!
Nathan.
Sean Williams.
Wow, that was the one that I didn't think people would get. Sean Williams, correct.
That is a
That's
hell of
made his week now, by the way.
That is a hell of a, really.
It's a hell of a shout, yeah.
Wales, 4-1 defeat.
Yeah, no recollection of that goal. Kenny.
I'm on the ropes there. He's put me on the ropes there, Nathan.
There's a couple you will be kicking yourself with. Both of you will be for not saying. Sean Williams is great.
Well, it hasn't come back to me yet.
Yeah.
I have a feeling there's at least another one centre half there.
Yeah. Well, actually, I haven't kept track of what you've already said, but I presume you'll pull each other up.
I'm fishing.
You shouldn't be bounced out, by the way. If you get one wrong, you should just have to sit out a round and then get back in again, because this is crazy stuff. Like.
Have you got one, Adrian?
Oh, I've had a few there.
You got a couple of you?
Sean Williams was
I've got a few.
I'm going to push you here, Kenny.
I'm going to go with the lad centre forward, Hogan.
No.
Johnny Maguire was like.
No, that was against New Zealand in a friendly. So Kenny, you also get the
grey area here between
I'll give
friendlies.
you a few. Are we done?
Yeah, we're done. Nathan, go.
John Egan, Alan Brown,
yeah.
Matt Doherty.
Yeah. Jeff Hendrick.
Jeff Hendrick.
No one said Shane Long, I don't think.
Shane Long. Plenty of options there.
Jonathan Walters also scored since his retirement. And I think that is all the names covered. So, Kenny, you get to kick us off with this one.
Is Adrian actually out the whole game here?
No, Adrian's back in now for this one.
Such a stupid
back in for this list.
Doesn't suit my skills, Kenny, this one.
Kenny, can you name a Republic of Ireland player with 70 caps or more? 7-0.
Kevin Kilban.
Kevin Kilban is one. Next up is Adrian.
Shea Given.
Shea Given is another. Nathan.
John O'Shea.
John O'Shea.
Steve Staunton.
Steve Staunton.
Robbie Keane.
Yeah.
Who was it? Nathan.
Was it me?
Yeah.
Over 70 caps.
70. Yeah.
James McLean.
James McLean.
Duffers.
Damien Duff is correct.
Does he have 70 caps? Gary Breen?
No.
Oh, this will go on for about a half an hour now. I should only miss one round and be straight back in again.
Nathan, you're up.
One more. I can only think of one.
Niall Quinn.
Niall Quinn, correct. Kenny.
I'm gonna go with Jesus, I'm struggling. Over not sure Big Paul. Big Paul. I'm not. This isn't my answer, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there. Big Paul, you would think, wouldn't you? But
well, is that your answer, Kenny? Come on.
No, I'm gonna take that one back.
Paul McShane, is it?
No, I'm gonna go with from my day. Oh, it's got to be Gaz Kelly.
No. Game over.
Gary Kelly.
Gary Kelly does not have 70 caps for Ireland.
No way.
Back from your day, Kenny. Kenny Cunningham has over 70 caps for the Republic of Ireland.
You are joking me.
Kenny
How many caps have you got? How many caps have you got?
I can't count.
How many caps?
I don't count half them.
Oh, you are joking me.
I don't have
count
all
half
the
them.
figures.
I don't count half them. How many did Gary Kelly get?
I'll check that up in a sec. Kenny Cunningham ended up with 72 caps.
Kenny, seriously. Would you not know that off the top of your head?
No, I wasn't.
Were you not just thinking? Or
Gary Kelly with 52.
Do you know?
Caps.
When he says 72, are you going, oh yeah, no, I know I have 72?
No, I knew I didn't around it. I knew I wasn't thinking that way, to be honest with you. If you asked me how many caps I've got, I know I've got in and around that, but...
Wow.
We just go through the full list in alphabetical order. Packy Bonner, Liam Brady, Tony Cascarino, Kenny Cunningham, Damien Duff, Richard Dunn, Shea Given, Ray Houghton, Robbie Keane, Kevin Kilban, Shane Long, James McLean, Aidan McGeady, Paul McGrath, Kevin Moran, John O'Shea, Frank Stapleton, Steve Staunton, Andy Townsend, Niall Quinn and Glenn Whelan. The scores after that round are Nathan on 1 point, Kenny on -3, Adrian on -3.
How the hell does that even work? How does that scoring even work? That makes
Round
no
4,
sense.
you both got the magic point for
Sean.
you. The pass the person of doom went all doom on your face. Round 4 is the fun-free magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number
we're
exactly
still doing
round.
this?
If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. We're going to state that we can,
Look at his face.
we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper.
72 caps.
I'm also going to ask for your pens once the music ends. So, if you don't mind, give us the following number. So, the number of birthdays Spain's new wunderkind Gavi has celebrated in his life, plus the number of trophies Claudio Ranieri won at Chelsea, plus the number of medals of any colour Ireland won at the Olympic Games this year, plus the number of goals the Republic of Ireland have scored in both competitive fixtures and friendlies across 2021 so far. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So add them all up, write that on your sheet, and that is your answer. So how old is Gavi?
Got it.
How many trophies did Ranieri win with Chelsea? How many medals did Ireland win at the Olympics? And how many goals have Ireland scored in all fixtures, including friendlies, in the year 2021?
What was the second question?
How many trophies did Ranieri win with Chelsea? Okay. Pens down. Nathan, what have you got?
32.
Adrian?
28.
28. Kenny?
27.
27. Well, I can tell you, Adrian and Kenny are both back in the game. You're bust by 1, Nathan. It was 31. So, Gavi is 17. Ranieri has 1-0 at Chelsea. 1-0 at Chelsea.
I put that 1.
Ireland won 4 medals at the Olympic Games. And Ireland has scored 10 goals across their fixtures.
You're kidding me.
So, Adrian, you get 2 points for that. Kenny,
Did he
you
not
get
win a
1
League
point for
Cup?
that. No, he won nothing with Chelsea. So, we move on to the final.
That'll be the 0, Nathan. That's where the 0 comes from.
Our winner tonight.
Like I got 3 out of 4. The 3 toughest questions, and Claudio Ranieri, world's nicest man, screws me over. Are the lads actually back in it? Like, what did they get there? 1 point each.
I got 2.
It's Nathan on 1 point.
1 point each.
Nathan on 1 point, Adrian on -1, Kenny on -2.
For God's sake, this minus thing is a load of...
I thought both Kenny and Adrian were -2.
The nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. So those are the rules.
Sure, we're both miles off.
Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Kenneth Cunninghams from the Kenneth Branaghs. It's a no theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get into this round will be added to your score in the previous round. 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions.
So what are the scores? 1?
Yeah, we got this
1,
-1,
-2.
What am I on? -2?
You're on -1, Adrian. You're closer. You're second. You remember, you came closer to the number.
Oh, are we just shouting out answers here?
No,
it's like random.
I'm going to start with Nathan, and when he gets one wrong, I move on to Adrian. Then when he gets one wrong, I move on to you, and then we go again.
Fair enough. So you have a bit of structure this time. You've learned from your previous
Owen struggles when we're at just positive numbers.
I love, by the way, this
how
quiz
he's
was
work with the
set out to be
minus
10 minutes, and the actual questions themselves are about half an hour long.
Yeah, well, whose fault is that?
Owen's learned from his previous mistakes.
It is.
Nathan,
right, come on.
Are you ready?
Get this victory parade underway.
Nathan Murphy, your 40 seconds starts.
Hold on, Owen.
Oh,
Nathan's in front now. There's only 40 seconds for the quiz.
Yeah.
Surely it's in his best interest to elongate every...
Well, exactly.
You get stuck to the point.
My reception is down.
Yeah,
bad internet.
Hello? Just give us it.
Exactly.
Owen.
Rapid fire.
Okay.
Fair point.
Fair point. Let's do it.
Thank
Nathan
you.
Murphy, your 40 seconds starts now.
Do it.
In baseball, what is the franchise team of the team in Tampa Bay?
Come on.
Don't know.
The Rays.
Just did it.
Who was the Ryder Cup captain for Europe in 2018, Adrian?
Thomas Bjorn.
Correct. Chidozie Ogbenny played GEA for which Cork club?
Finbars.
No, Nemo Rangers. What country does Michael Antonio play his international football for, Kenny?
Somewhere in the Caribbean.
Jamaica.
Thank you.
America
Correct.
Port signed for Manchester City. From which club in 2018, Nathan?
Athletic Bilbao.
Correct. Tom Farrell plays his rugby for which Irish province?
Connacht.
Correct. In what year did a Connacht team last win the men's All-Ireland in Eider Cold?
Stop.
2001.
No, 2017.
Eider Cold.
It doesn't matter. Nathan Murphy, you are the
Just
champion
scrapes
once
that, by the
again. You stay on 1 point.
Not happy with that, Alan. Not happy with that.
Kenny, you end up on -3.
Put me a bit more
Adrian,
slack
you stay
there.
on -1. Take it away, Nathan. Victory speech.
Listen, it was just an honour to be on the pitch with Kenny Cunningham. The fact that Kenny didn't know that he had over 70 caps.
Nathan, would you
tarnishes
agree?
my victory somewhat. He was just too modest. I think Kenny knew. He just didn't want him.
Nathan, would you agree a more experienced quizmaster, when I said the Caribbean, would have asked me to be more specific, given me the opportunity to answer? Thank you.
I think it was unfortunate, Kenny, that Eoin decided, well, we had a special guest today to experiment with the quiz. Though I do like this new round.
I think that new round was an absolute shit show. It was, honestly, that was bad.
It just goes to prove you might get one answer out of Adrian Barry. You certainly won't get a second.
Well, the rules just make no sense. Kenny, how many?
Adrian,
it wasn't as lazy as that FIFA question, was it?
Ding, 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 all the way through, right? And then at the end of it,
your phone on silent
when you thought Nathan had
afternoon,
about 12 extra points, Eoin goes, and that's 1 point to you, Nathan. It just makes no sense at all.
Kenny, thanks so much for being with us this morning, and thank you for taking part in the quiz. That is Friday's OTB AM. It's been brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We are back here on Monday morning at 7:30. We'll see you then, reacting to the Republic of Ireland against Azerbaijan. No doubt. If you're listening on YouTube, just hit subscribe. Chat to you then. We are leaving you with some good stuff from last night's Off the Ball.
All right, I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Parsons, CEO of the GPA. How are you keeping, Tom?
Very good. And yourself?
I'm all right. So the countdown is really on now to Special Congress, October 23rd, and really a huge decision for the future of the senior inter-county game. We've been debating it on Off the Ball over the last couple of weeks, hearing from a lot of voices around the various different options. And just before we talk then, for anyone who has somehow missed all of this, the different options that are on the table for the delegates in a couple of weeks' time. Option one is that the league will continue as is in the spring. The Ulster and Leinster Championships would start as normal, but the losers then of preliminary rounds would end up moving to either Connacht or Munster, so that all 4 provincial championships would have 8 teams. Each province is competed on a round-robin basis, provincial finals, and we move on to the All-Ireland Series, qualifiers and all of that, and also a Tailteann Cup in there as well for Division 3, Division 4 teams that don't do well in their provinces. The mood seems to be that option one isn't gaining any ground at the moment, and it'll come down to option 2 or option 3. Option 2 is that we flip the season, so the provincial championship takes place first in February and March. They'd be played again as a round robin, so every team guaranteed 5-6 games there. And then we move on to the league in the heart of the summer. Every team guaranteed 7 competitive games. It means every side will still have a chance of competing for Sam Maguire, because the winners of Division 3 and Division 4 would progress to the All-Ireland Series alongside the top 5 teams in Division 1 and the top 3 teams in Division 2. And the Tailteann Cup would also have a real importance, because it means any team from Division 3 or Division 4 could still gain promotion regardless of where they finish in the league. So that's option 2. The other option is basically as is. League, then provincial, then All-Ireland. That may be the Super 8s, but there's also a feeling that maybe the Super 8s will be disbanded either way and we'll go back to the old qualifier system. Tom, you held a press conference today with several inter-county players. You led it, with the GPA coming out strongly behind option 2.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite complex sometimes when you're explaining 2 structures in 2 minutes. So if anybody wants to get another look, we're going to share actually a 4-minute video that will explain it quite clearly, the proposal that we're going for. So we've a number of whys, Nathan. And, you know, before I even tell you the why, we've surveyed our players, we've held workshops and focus groups one-to-one with players. Last week we rang every rep or captain across every county. We hosted a workshop for managers. So we've a very robust opinion of the players, and it's strongly coming out for this proposal. And there's a few reasons for that, Nathan. One is development. So this guarantees 7 competitive championship games in the spring or summer for all teams, you know. And if you're talking to any player, games develop teams, games develop players. So development is really important. Competitive balance with that as well. If you're playing games, you need to be playing against teams at your own level, so you can progress and you can navigate and you have a competitive game there. It's fair, and fairness is really important, because, you know, we want to end these brutal mismatches that we're seeing in the height of the summer. So the fact that all teams are playing across divisions, we won't see those brutal mismatches. And it's fair because teams can develop equally. So one of the conversations I had last week was with the Leitrim captain, Paddy Maguire. We both played Sigerson football in Sligo. And typically his championship campaign was 2 or 3 games every summer, whereas I had 6 or 7 championship games because we competed at the latter end of the competition. So we were running the numbers, and we said, geez, it would take Paddy playing 35 years with Leitrim just to match the championship caps that I get as a player. So fairness is really important. And then we're introducing, there's an appetite to introduce a tier 2 competition. And this proposal will really allow that tier 2 competition to thrive. Why? Because it's linked to promotion. So if team don't progress to Sam Maguire, and every team has the opportunity to progress to knockout stages of Sam Maguire, and they're in a second tier competition, they will play and compete in that competition because it's linked to promotion. So there's loads of reasons. There's appetite for change, it's development, it's competitive balance. It brings, talking to a lot of players, it'll bring a lot of excitement to the summer because you're going to have 16 games every weekend, and they're going to be against teams at your level, and there's an opportunity to progress. So there's many reasons, but today, and why we're coming out today, is with a very robust position from the GPA and our National Executive Committee, and we want the views of the players to be heard.
At the moment, we have pre-season competitions. So we have the McKenna Cup, and in the different provinces, they seem to take on a different level of importance. And to play devil's advocate against this, what we would be doing with option 2 is turning the provincial championships into a pre-season competition and completely devaluing them of importance.
No, but you look at it, Nathan, right? The last championship game will be in July of a given year. The next time a supporter or a player gets out to represent their county is in a provincial championship the following February. So there's going to be a huge appetite to play those games. And, Niall Morgan was on the panel today, and Division 1 players that I've spoken to, you can still go and win your province. It's still a very prestigious competition. And in fact, there's more games to the province because the games move from 27 games now, and because it's a round robin format, there's now something like 80 games. So, I don't buy that it's not a valuable competition. It absolutely is a valuable competition.
Do you think it'll in any way reinvigorate some of the provincial championships? Because it feels as though still in Ulster, if you're Tyrone, you're going to have to take the Ulster Championship seriously. You're going to have to still put out your best team week in, week out. Where actually for a Dublin, you can probably use this as an experimental tournament, knowing that you're still going to win the vast majority of your games. You can use it as a pre-season competition, that there will be a disparity in how teams approach the provincial championships.
Yeah, well, you look at if in year 2 or year 3 of this system, right? You've had teams that have played 7 championship games in the height of summer, some progressing to play in the knockout stages of Sam Maguire, or some competing in a second tier competition that's taken seriously. So teams are developing in the summer. So when they come around to play the provincial games, they're actually probably better placed to take on some of those Division 1 teams. So it'll provide competitive balance as well. It's all about competitive balance. So, I believe, provincial titles are still very important, and players will take it seriously. But what we need here is we need all our teams playing games in the spring and the summer. And when you look at this and you run the numbers, like the existing Super 8s is something like 66 games in the summer, right? This new proposal will bring 135 games in the spring and summer. That's when players want to be playing the football. The ground is hard and we're moving. And, so there's, and Nathan, this is the kind of debate it needs. It deserves to have this debate, this robust conversation, because we need to ignite Gaelic football.
It's the perfect time as well for change in terms of the cycle of media rights deals, which are up for renegotiation again from next summer. So the money conversation is a huge factor in delegates, and the provincial councils do a huge amount of good work in that the amount of development officers that they employ, money is going back to clubs. And we at Dermot McAvoy from the Ulster Council, genuinely concerned about a potential decrease in revenue that would come about with option 2. Have you any facts, figures that the GPA have right now to allay any of those fears that delegates will have going into vote in a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah. Well, look, Nathan, I'm a chartered engineer, and I just look at numbers at a high level, and I haven't done a deep dive into all the intricacies of funding and financials. But when you look at it, this championship league will double the amount of games in the spring and summer. I can only imagine that will lead to more revenue. Even when you look at the provincials, there's double the amount of provincial games. There's 81 provincial games because it's a round robin in comparison to 27 provincial games. So, and overall, there's a 15% more games in the season. So, you know, when you run the numbers, unless there's a riddle here, Nathan, I can't understand with imagination and selling competitions that this won't be a positive for revenue streams for counties. And also, you know, in Mayo, we have a huge amount of season ticket holders, and they probably buy those tickets because they trust that, you know what, Mayo have a good chance to be in maybe the knockout stages of a competition. So I could get 5 or 6 championship games during the summer. So it's a good investment to buy a season ticket. But if you're a division,
they pay €120, I think it is at the moment, for the season ticket. It's hard to see with this new system how that season ticket, the price of that isn't going to rise substantially. If you're looking at 4 or 5 guaranteed league games, 4 or 5 guaranteed championship games, that some people might find themselves priced out of that.
Yeah, so this gives an opportunity for every county and every division to say, you know, we're guaranteed 7 championship games. And this isn't league. I know these are championship games now in the summer. It's ran off in a league format, but these are hard championship games against competitive teams at the same level. So, you know, at the start of the year, every team has the opportunity to sell that product and that package. So, you know, Nathan, I haven't done an in-depth analysis of the numbers. I was listening to Conor O'Donoghue, who's on the fixture task force. He had some numbers behind it, but at a very high level, from a professional, when I look at the numbers and the number of games, it makes sense that this financially makes sense as well. More games, more competitive games at the right time of year. I just don't see the riddle why this is a problem financially.
I guess it's impossible to have a perfect system as well because of the difference in populations, in interest levels in different counties. And there will be quirks. And, you know, a couple of them might be the separation completely now from the provincial championship to the All-Ireland series, where you might have a Cavan winning Ulster or Tipperary winning Munster, yet because of their league performance, they're then not involved in the latter stages of the championship. Are you comfortable with the lack of a link between what happens provincially and the All-Ireland series?
Yeah, I mean, our leagues aren't linked to the championship series currently, yet everybody wants to go out and win their division. Like, we've consulted with players. Players will still want to go out and win their provinces. But the bigger picture here is that players want games and compete against teams at their level in the summer where they can grow and develop, and it's fair. So, you know, like this, it needs this debate, right, Nathan? And there's no perfect solution. I don't care what team we pull together to put out a structures. It's not going to please absolutely everybody, but this is a very, very important decision, and we should have this level of debate. From a GPA perspective, we know we want uncertainty of outcome in games, we want competitive balance, we want a split season. Players have expressed that they want, and every team wants to have an opportunity to compete for SAM. So this ticks a lot of our boxes. So we have a foundational structure that ticks our boxes, and there are why. But like, let's get out there. Let's have the debate on why the alternative is a better solution. And like, when we start,
are you having that debate, Tom? Because we're obviously having it now, and we're having it on the radio and on OTB AM over the last 2 weeks. Have you been having this debate with other delegates?
Yeah, so we've asked every rep and captain to express their views to delegates and county board chairmen, and there is debate happening. Absolutely, we're having debate amongst players when we explain, well, how does this adapt if this situation happens? We need to have plenty of debate on it, and we have 2 weeks now, the 23rd of October. I believe the Gaelic family isn't well educated on this, hence why we're going to share our video of Proposal B and what the structure looks like. Nathan, you explained it very, very well, but I needed to visually actually see moving parts before I could understand it. So, you know, I'd asked the Gaelic family, club members, you know, inter-county players, everybody, stakeholders, to look at what's on the table. And really, the 2 things that are on the table, no one's talking really about Proposal A, but it's a proposal. It's Proposal B or the status quo. And from a player's perspective, this is a really, really strong, exciting proposal. We have a lot of robust reasons behind it. And I think, you know, our county executives and our delegates, they will, you know, over the next 2 weeks have the debate. There's no executives coming back saying we're not going to engage with our players. So those conversations are happening. And you know, every week we'll feedback from players, and we just want our players to have the conversation locally with what is the opinion of their squad.
If the status quo were to remain, how damaging would it be for the morale of players in, say, the 20 counties who aren't the general All-Ireland contenders year on year? Because you touched on Leitrim there. We hear it from countless counties every summer that, you know, players are going to be looking around. They've been stuck at home. Will I go to Australia? If it's opening up again, will I go to America? Like, what is the point for me as a Division 3 or Division 4 player when the chances of silverware are slim and none? Like, how big is it for the players, and how much importance are they putting on Proposal B going through, and how damaging will it be if it doesn't go through?
Yeah, no, look, I've had hundreds of conversations on this, Nathan, and you're right. I feel a sense of excitement that teams might be going into the summer with 7 championship games. And, you know, if we win all the games, we still have a chance to enter into the Sam Maguire competition. And if we don't, okay, there's a Tier 2 competition. How do I know that that Tier 2 competition will be taken seriously? But as Mickey Quinn said, you know, if we don't win Division 4 and some of the players decide, do you know what, Tailteann Cup isn't for me, their manager and Mickey Quinn and the leaders and that team will say, hold on a second, yes it is, because if we win the Tailteann Cup, it's linked to promotion. And Nathan, like, that happens. I won a county title with Charterstone in 2009, senior county title. 2 years later, relegated to intermediate, and won that intermediate county title. And we celebrated that intermediate county title as much as we did the senior. Why? Because it's linked to promotion, it's progression. So look, this is happening in all competitions. And I do feel, Nathan, there's a lot of excitement in the air. I haven't even thought about what's plan B if this doesn't pass. The priority now is what you guys are doing, is to educate our Gaelic family, educate players, have the conversation locally, have the debate locally, that delegates and county executives and players, and everybody has the same objective. We want our players and our teams to develop. We want Gaelic football to thrive. So in the interest of Gaelic football, let's have these debates and let's explore. So we came to this.
Do you think all of the delegates that is their number one priority? It's clearly your number one priority, the GPA, because we've spoken to a huge amount of people on the record and off the record. And the one thing that stood out to me was, this feels like a seismic moment for the GEA. But I don't get the sense from the delegates that they feel it's a seismic moment. It's just another vote. And if it goes through, probably won't. It'll probably status quo. Do people like the Super 8s? Probably not. Let's go back to qualifiers. We all move on with our lives. That the impact that this has on hundreds and hundreds of intercounty players hasn't been fully grasped by an awful lot of people.
No, 100%. It hasn't. There hasn't been enough education material that's gone out to clubs to allow clubs to make a formulated opinion on. And that's why these 2 weeks are really critical, you know, that this conversation is happening locally all the time. You know, and I think it's really important, you know, but we've still time between now and the 23rd of October, you know, and, you know, I think more conversation, more debate. It's, you know, we just need to not be afraid of change, Nathan, and change. Everybody has some element of fear. Or
why do you think that fear is there? Because you're in an awful lot of these meetings. You're dealing with these delegates.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.